Hey everybody, tonight we're debating whether or not the Quran is scientific, and we are starting right now with Muhammad's opening statement. Thanks so much for being with us, Muhammad. The floor is all yours.
Uh, all right, so I just have a quick presentation in peace and blessings to you all. I'm just pulling it up right now. So, is the Quran scientific? Well, let's just get based. Can you see my screen, James? There.
Yes.
All right, so I'm just starting my counter right now. So submission to God is something very scientifical. I do want to get into the very basics of the religion, because you got to understand the religion's been inherited over more than 1,400 years. So there's some issues that happened in the previous times that we need to cover really quick. So communication is very important. When Muhammad used to say Muslim in Arabic, it already was defined. So people already knew what Muslim meant. It didn't need another definition. When I say Muslim in English, it means nothing. So when I say Islam, I'm actually meaning submission. Submission to what? To God. Muslim means submitter. Allah means the God. And I can prove this. Just give me 1 second. Quran means recital, but there's only one Arabic recital, which is known, which is the word of God. Sharia, the word Sharia, actually means school. Jihad means effort. So these words are important. The problem is they seeped into the English language, which they never should have in the first place, because the religion is universal. Some modern misconceptions when it comes to submission. Submission existed before Prophet Muhammad. Submission can be achieved without knowing the recital. So examples as Moses, Jesus, and Adam. The school of submission that came down on Muhammad, which people call Islam, gets you to submission, but it's not the only school of submission. But it's currently the best known school of submission. And that's why a lot of people tend to turn to the Muslim faith. The best submitter or Muslim that ever lived or will ever live is actually Abraham, despite popular belief. Every name and title of God has a translatable definition. So in Arabic, you have Al-Rahman, the merciful, Al-Sami', the hearing, Al-Khabir, the knowing, Al-Muwallif, the programmer. And with that said, Allah has the same al start or al, which is saying what's la, God, ilah is deity. So the actual word Allah had no meaning in English from the get-go. Yes, because of social structuring for people to communicate, we had to bring it into the English dictionary. But with that said, the God already has a meaning in English. You don't need to explain what a God is. A God is very clear on who he is. With that said as well, the actual faith or the testimony of faith, or in Arabic, which they say shahadat, the testimony is there are no deities except the God, because there's only one God. Now, I did say that the name of God, al-Muwallif, the programmer. So to me, I'm a computer scientist. I've been in computer science for more than 15 years, and thank God I did very well for myself. So for me, God is the master programmer. Everything around me is pre-programmed. That's what we call predetermination. So every action, every thought you had already has instructions that answer you. So if you start having the bad thoughts or dark thoughts, you're going to go into depressive modes, and you're going to be stubborn, you're going to be arrogant. But if you're able to let go of things, there's a path that's written. Any path you walk or anything you look for, as long as you keep trying to tread through that path, the answer's already been answered. That's what I believe predetermination is. Everything around you is objectly oriented. So things have their, just like in programming, you have your functions, you have your methods, you have your attributes, and things come together to work if it's allowed. If there's instructions when things connect, certain functions or certain methods, and it's an object on objects coming together, which cause a reaction. So every thought has a result. To me, God is all powerful. Powerful means the ability to accomplish with just words. So if a powerful man can lift up a phone and say, I want 120,000 men on a border, they're there magically, but that is power, because all he did was lift a phone and it's happening. So the ability to move things with just words or program instructions with just word is very powerful. We understand that God created the world in 6 days, but we in the recital, we have a verse that's saying that one day a God is 1,000 of what we count. So imagine a deity, an entity speaking for 6,000 earthly years straight and giving instructions to everything around you. Science is the word of God, because as we're reverse engineering the science and the physics around us, now we're getting to levels of quantum, we're understanding that there's instructions that we can't change. We're supposed to understand them, manipulate them, and then that's how we keep moving forward. Everything around you is somewhat of Boolean logic, or it's in binary. So you're either a liar or an honest person. It's true or false, believer or disbeliever. There's the scale, or what I like to call is the intensity. So I gave you an example. If you're 50.01% honest, you're just not a liar. And it's not for me to judge because the final judgment is for God, but you're put on that scale and based on that scale is how good your life is going to be, or the path that you already picked. Now, God is the master computer. So why everything around you is being rendered, just like how a virtual world, but we're in the real world. And that's very evident in the Quran or the recital. God in the recital, he says he's the fastest in calculations or computing. He's cloning or copying all that is done for post review and evidence. He has a database where every object is. You don't see any artifacts or bufferings in the sky above you. When you look up, it's not loading or getting cut, right? Everything has a decreed limit that it cannot escape. So everything has a decree or instructions. Everything has a destiny, but it can choose to work toward it or not. Reactions trigger other reactions and cause chain reactions. He brought you from the state of being offline to online. You're going to go offline when it's death. So if he was able to bring you from offline to online, he can bring you back online. He programmed this world around you. He can program another world, which we would call paradise. Now, when we're going to come to the specifics of the recital, there's verses that clearly go with the physical, like the laws of nature with physics. So there's a verse here that says, God created every grounded mobile creature from water, and thus some of them move on their bellies, some walk on 2 legs, some walk on 4. God creates whatever he wills. God is capable of all things. The word I want you to notice, the word dab. Dab in Arabic roughly translates to a grounded mobile creature. So it's not a bird and it's not a fish. It's something that walks on ground. And as you see, the Arabic is very clear because all I had to do was say one word, but I had to use about 3 words in English to explain that thing. There's something called a lexicon where it takes the root words of Arabic, because Arabic is a structured language. It's very programming. Like the grammar is programming in a sense. That's the syntax of that language. But the actual root word of the word is telling you that it's not a bird and it's something that's grounded, that's walking. Now, if we go back to it, to the recital, there's a verse that's saying there isn't a grounded mobile creature nor a bird. So God himself is making a distinguishment between dabbe and a bird. And now back to the original verse, you can see that God wrote that some of them move on their bellies, some walk on 2 legs, some walk on 4 legs. God created whatever he wills. So God never shied away from saying 2, 3, or 4. Take care of the orphans. If you can't, marry 2, 3, or 4 women. And if you feel you can't just be just with them, then one's insufficient, or whoever you give your oaths to. And the less you take, it's better because you won't transgress. But he said 2, 3, and 4. And now, if you go to a different verse, God said that the angels, when he takes messengers from the angels, he gives them 2, 3, or 4 wings. And there's another point here. He increases in the creation as he will. God is capable of doing anything. So he increases in the creation as he wills. God is capable of doing anything. Going back to the original verse, it says that God is capable of doing anything. So after the number 4, you're able to add as many legs as you want. That's why there's insects that have many legs, obviously. But if we come to the numbers, it says 2 and 4. Well, tripedialism, the ability to walk on 3 legs, or it isn't observable in the natural world. So there are no known species where 3 legs is a standard. And now, if we're going to carry on with just that verse, God said that God created every ground mobile creature from water. That's kind of starting to sound something familiar, that we're a theory that we're taking on. There's another verse that states as well that have the atheists not observed that the sky and the land used to be one mass, and then we have split them? And from the water, we made everything that is living. Do they not believe? So if we go into the, where we're talking about evolutions, where we come from a paired, it's not an ape, but it's similar to an ape, but then things branched out to monkeys, apes, and then the Homo sapien. But then somehow this Homo sapien, which is different from all the other creatures, came to a point where it had a spark, and that sparked the ability to speak and communicate without, emotions and grunting and stuff. And at the same time, it had characteristics that's not part of the natural world. And one thing that God does a lot in the recital is he compares things to stuff. It's like, why are they running away? Like their donkeys running away from, or like their zebras running away from lions. But when it came to a certain verse, he didn't use the word like. He said, those that transgressed in the Sabbath, he said to them, be despised apes. So when that spark of humanity, or that little spark of diplomacy that's in you, and the ability to be human, which is different than just a regular animal, when that's taken away from you, you're just like an ape, or you are an ape at that point. So that kind of lines with the theory of evolution, which we're still trying to discover. And there's a verse that's very clear, and it's a very scientific verse when God said, travel through the lanes and observe how God began creation, and he will produce the final image. That's so as we're seeing the steps of evolution that God left clues for us, he still produced that final image. Now, this is a verse that says, a proven miracle sign for them is the night we strip from it the day, and thus they are in darkness. It's already a miraculous verse, but he used the word miracle in that verse. What is the miracle? In 650 AD, the common idea of people was that the sun lights up the whole sky. But in 1,000 years after that verse, we realize that the night is a constant, while the day is a variable based on the sun and the atmosphere. If there's no atmosphere, there's no day. And the night is still present over the day. So I could put wallpaper on a wall, and then at night, I strip the wallpaper from the wall. The wall's always present. That's why he used the word strip. And later in the recital, there's a verse that says, the night covers the day. So how would a prophet in the middle of the desert know that?
I can give you about 30 seconds to wrap up.
Fasting is good for you. There's a process called autophagy where it recycles your body. The only way you trigger the best way to trigger that is through fasting. God said that he developed lumps into bones, or like from the embryo, the bones came out. If you're looking for stem cells, they're in the middle of a bone marrow, which is the center at that point. God said that he brought down iron. He didn't say that iron is part of the earth. He brought it down. So if you look where the main sources of iron come on earth, they're actually from meteorites. So it's pretty self-explanatory at that point. But at the same time, remember, the recital isn't a book of science. We're trying to see if it breaks any fundamental science laws.
And
the book of recital, and just to finish on that point, the book of
this is
the science of humanity.
About a minute after. We got to. I can give you like 10 more seconds.
Unfortunately, I couldn't finish it, but yes, I'll stop.
We'll jump into the opening from Aron as well before we go into the open conversation. But want to say, and then if you could do me a favor and unshare, it's all right, I can do it on my side. Want to say, folks, thrilled to have you here. If it's your first time, we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics, and we hope you feel welcome, whether you be an atheist, whether you be Muslim, Christian, you name it. We are glad you are here. We'll kick it over to Aron. Thanks so much. The floor is all yours, Aron. Oh, I think you might be on mute. Let me try to...
Nope, that was me. So it seems that Muhammad changed the topic to, is the Quran religious? His opening argument, much like the Quran itself, was little more than a recital of the question-begging fallacy of circular assumption, which is ubiquitous throughout religions, all of them. But it's not permitted in science. And the debate I agreed to was whether the Quran is scientific. And what does it mean to be scientific? If we simply Google that, we see that it must be based on or characterized by the methods and principles of science. And discussing the methodology or the methodologies of science must begin with methodological naturalism, the principle that all postulations must be based on indicative evidence and that all explanations must be according to natural laws and processes. And none of this is found in the Quran, which attributes everything to miracles. Miracles have essentially the same definition as magic, being the evocation of supernatural forces or entities to control or forecast natural events in ways that are inexplicable by science because they defy the laws of physics. For example, subatomic particles may not behave as predicted by classical physics, but they do according to quantum physics. So we can never just throw up our hands and say, science can't explain that, therefore magic. According to sciencecouncil.org, the methodologies of science include objective observation, specifically measurement and data. And we also need evidence, which in this context means scientific evidence, which is a body of objectively verifiable facts that are positively indicative of and or exclusively concordant with only one available position or hypothesis over any other. And then we need experiment and or observation as the benchmarks for testing hypotheses to see whether they are supported by the evidence. And anything that is not supported doesn't warrant serious consideration. Come back when you have something to show. Otherwise, we have literally nothing to talk about. There must be verification and testing, critical exposure to scrutiny, peer review, and assessment. And these are the ways of objectively checking and rechecking repeatedly so that we don't get fooled into believing something that is not evidently true. And what we already accept must still continually be reevaluated and, if possible, refined and improved, if not exposed and rejected. If it's true, in whole or in part, then the evidence will support it. But if it's false, then there has to be some way to show that too, or at least what parts are false so that we can correct them. According to lumenlearning.org or .com and a number of other sources too, all scientific ideas must be testable. If it's not testable and not at least potentially falsifiable, then there's no way to improve understanding, which is the goal of science, to seek out the flaws in our current perception and correct them. You can't do that if there is no way to winnow fact from falsity, no way to know which direction would be correction or what parts are in error needing to be corrected. If the claim can neither be indicated nor vindicated, verified, or falsified, then it is dismissed as empty speculation without meaning or value to science, because it cannot contribute anything to the sum of human knowledge. We don't need to prove it wrong. What is asserted without evidence may be dismissed without evidence. Unsupported assertions have no more credence than claims that have already been proven false. And likewise, the Quran has zero credence. There is literally no good reason to believe it and lots of good reasons not to. Apart from a few possibly historic references, most of the claims repeated in the Quran are not evidently true, or they're evidently not true, but you're expected to believe them anyway, accepting them on faith in the form of credulity in lieu of evidence. And Islam is a totalitarian belief system such that anyone who tries to critically examine and test such claims is threatened with severe punishment, including death, and then even a fate worse than death after death, which is fortunately just another unsupported assertion, which is why the application of scientific scrutiny or methodology is strictly prohibited as a capital offense. There are many things the Quran says which we know are not true, that are demonstrably false and impossible, but Muslim scientists are not allowed to admit that, because the Quran says that to merely doubt what it says is to be an evildoer, while it says that blindly accepting every idiocy, no matter how absurd, is doing good. This goes against every principle of science. As cosmologist Carl Sagan said, the suppression of uncomfortable ideas may be common in religion or in politics, but it is not the path to knowledge, and there is no place for it in the endeavor of science. As theoretical physicist Richard Feynman said, the principle of science, the definition almost, is that the test of knowledge is experiment. Experiment is the sole judge of scientific truth. And what is the source of knowledge? Where do the laws that are to be tested come from? Experiment itself helps to produce these laws in the sense that it gives us hints. So scripture is unnecessary and inadmissible. Not only is it only hearsay of a highly dubious nature, but the erroneous assumption of authority that goes with it is only a baseless opinion, and as such cannot be considered evidence. To quote Sagan again, arguments from authority are worthless. Whatever is inconsistent with the facts, no matter how fond of it we are, must be discarded or revised. And according to the National Center for Biotechnology Information, some of the most basic principles of science are respect for the integrity of knowledge, collegiality, honesty, objectivity, and openness. Openness means a lack of secrecy, and collegiality refers to cooperation, both of which are prohibited in the Quran, as Allah says that he only lets us know what he wants us to know and keeps the rest hidden, lording his alleged superiority over us all, when really all of this is just coming from some desert bandit, not the sort of person known for their ethics or honesty, pretending to know things he obviously didn't know. And as dishonest as that is what all religions do. Honesty and respect for the integrity of knowledge both mean that one should never declare something to be true or false without sufficient evidence to support that conclusion, which again, you don't get in the Quran. Because right in the very first chapter, it already warns you that you'd better believe what you're told without question, reservation, or reason. Just believe what Muhammad allegedly said, simply because he allegedly said so, according to a bunch of other people centuries later who never met the man. We don't have anything resembling science in the Quran, only authoritarian dictates. Were we to accept the Quran as evidence of itself, then we would have to accept the Mahabharata as evidence of itself as well, and all the other Hindu scriptures too, in which case there would be much more evidence for Lord Krishna than for Allah. In reality, though, there is no evidence for either one, nor for any god or spirit of any religion, nor for anything commonly described as supernatural. The truth is what the facts are, what we can show to be true. There is no truth to any faith-based belief system. Not one actual fact that is both verifiably true and indicative of that conclusion over any other. Nothing whatsoever to distinguish any faith-based belief from the illusions of delusion. The Quran is the antithesis of science. It is a repugnant, redundant, factless, thoughtless collection of empty threats and impossible absurdities, unsupported by anything, contradicted by everything, and the best that it has is a posthumous promise at the opposite end of a false dichotomy that cannot bear examination and which isn't appealing enough to surrender reason to believe it anyway.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening, Aron. And we're going to jump into open conversation, folks. Want to let you know, hey, we are absolutely thrilled. If you haven't seen at the bottom right of your screen, we actually have two huge debates tomorrow. One is whether or not porn is bad for society with Kat and Dr. E. Michael Jones. You don't want to miss that one. As well as between David Wood and, we're very excited for this one, also at the bottom right of your screen, my friends. Tomorrow morning, in fact, David Wood and Muji are debating who was Muhammad. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, as we have a lot more juicy debates coming up. And thanks so much, gentlemen. The floor is all yours, Aron and Muhammad.
Right.
Muhammad, I'd say if you can turn up your mic just a bit. It seems like it's gotten lower. If you're able to turn it up just a bit, it should be more matched.
All right, just give me 1 second. I apologize.
No problem.
Is this better?
That works, yep.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, I made the statement that the recital isn't supposed to be a scientific book anyways. We're trying to see if modern day science break verses in the recital, because we got to see if science disproves the recital. It's not the recital supporting science, but I showed you few verses.
Okay, so you want to change the debate? You concede already that the Quran is not scientific?
The debate is the Quran scientific. That means
okay, so you're conceding that point now?
No, I'll tell you something, because I was just asking you if we're just trying to see if the laws of nature defy the Quran. But there is a science of the recital.
Well, that's a separate debate, and yes, they do.
Perfect.
But on the question that we're having, on the debate we're having right now, is the Quran scientific?
Yes, I'll prove it to you, and I'll prove it on its own people. Just because I'm here to talk about
how are you going to meet any of the criteria required for it to be
I'll show you
scientific?
because the recital itself is a science. So you got to study.
By definition, it cannot be.
How's that? What is a science? I'll show you.
Science is a method of improving understanding of the natural world through experimentation.
But there's recurring patterns.
It specifically excludes authoritarian dictates. All you have is an authoritarian dictate.
There's a reoccurring theme. And if you just let me explain the theme on the Muslims themselves, because the recital can be used against a lot of the Muslims nowadays. I'll give you an example. Let's make first, we'll have a problem. So there's a problem in the Middle East. A lot of the countries are in war. A lot of countries are broke. All of them claim to be Muslim. Most of those countries claim to be Muslim. And yet the situation is declining a lot. So let's just make an observation based on one verse in the recital. Do not make distinguishments between the messengers. And now let's just observe, has that recurred before in history? Yes, it did with the Christians. The Christians believe in all the messengers before Jesus, but then they started putting Jesus better than everybody. And this is,
the Christians believed in Krishna and Buddha.
No, I'm talking about the Abrahamic religion. I'm just talking about the Abrahamic religion because we're talking about the Quran. The Quran came down from a prophet that came from Abraham. So just from the point of the Abrahamic religion, we had Jesus, and the people who followed Jesus, they believed in all the messengers, but what do? From the morning till the night, they just talk about Jesus. The only way you get to heaven in the Christian religion is you have to believe that Jesus died on the cross for you to get to heaven. He died for your sins and he died on the cross. You're in heaven. It doesn't matter if you're rotten. And it doesn't matter if you don't do any part of the religion, which is give to the poor, pray, and things that self-improve yourself or for self-improvement. I apologize. That's one thing they do. So it's just, you say words and you're magically free from sin.
Well, the Quran says the same thing in practically every surah.
but hold on. So when you walk into a church, what do you see? You see the picture of Jesus, and they just want to talk about Jesus to you all day, and they might mention another messenger in a passing by. Now, if you look at the Muslim religion nowadays, the people that say they follow the Prophet Muhammad, have they broke a cardinal rule? Let's see how they compare with the modern day Christians. And listen, this doesn't apply to all Muslims. There's a small group of Muslims that we're getting persecuted because of this. And you got to understand
you get brownie points being a religious person and pretending to be persecuted. Does that earn you something?
You got to understand the recital itself. There is no compulsion in religion. If I showed you a way where my submission gave me peace of mind because of my submission to the laws of nature. I was reading
the Quran today.
Understand?
And I noted, I didn't drag a copy of it in here, but I noted where it says, as it says over and over and over again, almost every surah, that the sins of the believers will be canceled, which means that the believers still have sins. The sins are immoral acts, right? So the believers can be immoral, but the only thing that matters is if they're believers. And the Quran says over and over again that to believe means to
a believer doesn't get you to heaven. There's nowhere does it say a believer gets to heaven.
Just to be sure, we heard plenty from Aron because we've heard maybe several minutes in a row from you, Muhammad. I just want to be sure, and then I promise we'll come right back.
But the point I'm making is
Muhammad, what I'm saying is I'm asking you to let Aron speak for a second.
Sure.
To believe is to do good, and to disbelieve is to be an evildoer. So the people who believe will have their sins canceled because they still have sin. They're still committing immoral acts, but they believe. And the only criteria for salvation is that you believe. And if you don't believe, then it doesn't matter how good you are. You're going to hell because you didn't believe. That's it. It's how credulous were you? That's your only, and that's, while that is another fine debate. If you want to compare the Christians and compare the Muslims, I'm game for that second debate too. But the one today was supposed to be talking about whether the Quran, not Islam or not Christianity, we were talking about the Quran, whether it is scientific. And I don't think you understand what the word. I don't think you understand any of the context of what the debate we're supposed to be.
I do want to just before we go into religion, or more particularly, I do want to say examples, Muhammad, as if we discuss, like you talked about autophagy and whether or not fasting leads to that, and that's connected. You were trying to make an argument for that being connected to Islam. That's
it wouldn't really make a difference.
But you could. My point is, you could study the recital as a science. So when certain people do certain actions in the world, as a humanity, it starts to fail. You've seen it many times in history, and we're reaching that point even in America. Like the reason why Moses was been sent or talked about a lot, and what happened in the Pharaoh times, and why the Pharaohs fell. You're seeing the same things. In a scientific method where people are being oppressed. There's the rich is really rich, the poor is really poor. There's wars that they can't afford.
Method?
Yeah, because it's based on observation. You're making a hypothesis. You're testing, and you're seeing the result.
Observation? What hypothesis? How do you test and correct it? How do you identify whether it's false? Because you see, you made a very big mistake. It's not the believers that go to heaven. It's the believers who were righteous. So there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, we believe," but then they don't. The believers who are righteous. What makes one righteous?
Look, righteous is okay. So the problem is, I missed a slide, and I would like just to explain to you. So an electron has a part in an atom, and that atom, the electron needs to do its part at any time. So God said in the recital, everything's submitted to the will of God. So everything is coming into a perfect system. God created humans on earth, not for us to take care of our families, nor for us to take care of ourselves. We're here to take care of the world. So we're supposed to be feeding the hungry. We're supposed to take care of the animals. We're supposed to clean what needs to be clean, and we've got to fix what needs to fix. So it's not about us. It's about taking care of the planet. But as more we move away from that, the more we get at each other, because it's the not human nature. It's our animal nature to start worrying about ourselves. We're not going to come back online. I'm going to do what I can without getting caught. And this is what the recital is trying to teach you not to do. It's putting the actual qualities of a human, where it is about humanity. It is about the world. It is about everyone else. And it's not about me. Me praying is not for God. Me praying is me remembering that there's a higher structure than me. So it's not, I fear him because of I understand
I
his
hate
power.
to interrupt. This has just been so broad and abstract. I was thinking, it's like one example.
But if you want, we can go back down to the scientific details.
I'm still talking. So if you were to make an argument, like you brought up the idea of fasting, and I'm going back to this because it's interesting, and I'm like, okay, tell me more. From your opening, you had said autophagy is like, you get in this fasted state and it's good for you. It's like cleaning out your cells. Like, if we talked about that, like, do you have an argument to say like that is like exclusive to Islam, or that's something that is something to that effect?
Yes, it's exclusive to Abrahamic religions.
More importantly, I asked the question. I asked the
Yes.
question of how is the Quran scientific? Which of the scientific principles and methodologies does it adhere to? It should adhere to all of them. So what was the observation being made? What was the hypothesis being made? How is that being tested? How is it potentially falsifiable? How would you correct it if it's wrong? Notice that he answered none of those questions. He just gave more unsupported assertions of the question begging fallacy, where he assumes his conclusion. He believes it because he believes it. And that's it. That's as far as we're going. Round and round and round, and we're done.
Brother, the recital is teaching you how to be the best human you can be. That's the science of a human.
I've read it. It teaches the furthest thing from that. It teaches you how to be blindly credulous, how to judge people unfairly, how God judges people unfairly, how God forces us. God is the one, according to the Quran, right from the second chapter, it begins to talk about how God has decided who will believe and who will not. He has closed the eyes and closed the ears of the unbelievers, and then he's going to punish us for what he forced us into doing. So God is a completely unrighteous judge. We are not being good in any sense. We're judging people as unfairly as God judges us. I've read the Quran. It's trash. It's not teaching us how to be good people, not remotely. And the one thing is really, really, really not remotely scientific. All it says is idiocy. It says a whole bunch of stupid things that cannot possibly be true, things that we know are definitely false, and gives no way to test any of them. There's no observation to be made. There's no evidence that it's based on. It's an authoritarian dictate, and you just believe that without question. Done.
But we can go back to the point where I made that everything's been pre-programmed. If you walked a certain path,
you assume that, but you don't have the evidence to show it, and you don't have
because
a way
if
of testing
anyone
it.
walked the exact same path you did and had the same mentalities, he's going to be speaking the exact same thing. That's where God is not allowing you to understand the words, is because you walk through that
goes
path.
against the scientific
So you get
principle
sealed
again.
because that's what you put in your pot. It's like you putting a bunch of salt in your brownie, and you're saying like, oh well, it's not sweet anymore because you got to that point. But if someone walked in a different path than you and had more of an open heart or an open mind, that's where the words do apply to him, because it's already been predetermined.
I hate to do this, but I tried to get it to go into the, like, I tried to even
But
for your
sorry,
favor,
I was just
Muhammad.
answering.
Hold on, I'm still
but
talking.
yeah, well, what's your answer? What's your answer when it comes to the
I don't understand
irony?
how you don't understand. If someone else is talking and you just talk over them, that I wait for you. Like, I hate interrupting, but it's just, it really hasn't converged on the topic, which I'm hoping it still can. And we have time. We're only 10 minutes
clearly
into
not
the
going
conversation. But as an example, I tried to kind of point it in your direction of something you already brought up, Muhammad. But one is, there's a claim allegedly that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, that allegedly Muhammad split the moon. So this is something that, again, this is something like, okay, is there a way we can scientifically test it? Whatever it is, like, if we discuss that, that's something that possible topic, or as I mentioned several times, the autophagy topic, if you want to try to make a case.
If you want to have a discussion, about scientific idiocies in the Quran, that would be a whole different debate. But the debate today was, is the Quran scientific, which I think my opponent has conceded right away that it's
now,
not.
My question to you, was it accurate when the Quran said that God strips the day from the night, showing that the night is a constant?
No, it is not accurate.
How's that not accurate?
The entire thing is based on a flat earth model, where he expands the skies, where he's molding out a domicile. Oh, jeez. Dumb dog. Somebody just walked in my front door, and that's what always happens. So everything.
But the expansion theory is in the recital
about the Earth in relation to the rest of the cosmos. Everything about it is wrong. It says that the sun and the moon both orbit the Earth, that they're bigger than the stars, that the stars are lamps, that
but
angels
you keep
throw
saying
at devils.
verses. They're not there.
Let's just give Aron like maybe 30 seconds.
No,
and then
I don't need any more time. We can have a whole nother discussion about things the Quran says that are stupid.
But you're saying things that are not in the Quran. That's my point. When you're saying that
they are definitely in the Quran.
Revolves around the earth, there is no.
Yeah, there are definitely. I have them documented. If you want to have a written discussion on this, so that I can pull up citations, we can do that.
The verse that's in question is that the moon has an orbit,
not just
and
one
the
verse.
sun is going to a certain destination. It's going. It's not an orbit.
It's not just one verse. It's repeated over and over in many surahs. So, and yes, I do have documentation for that. If you want to do it in a written format where we can show, if you want to do where we have to do scriptural,
but you're just making claims on a recital that are not there.
But they are there, and I've already documented them. I've already
I'd
written
love to
them
see
down.
that documentation at one time.
I'm sorry, what?
Now, I'd love to see that documentation. But
well,
was
then
the
we'll have a
recital
written
correct?
discussion, and I'll be able to show you all of that. But
Was
right
the
now,
recital
we were
correct
supposed
and
to be
where
having a
Aron comes
debate
from?
on whether the Quran is scientific. The Quran meets zero methodologies or principles. It is an authoritarian dictate, which by definition is excused from science. The Quran is not scientific. I'll give you one last shot. Take your turn right now to explain how the Quran is scientific, or give up.
Well, I'm trying to explain 2 points. It doesn't defy natural laws that are found in science.
Yes,
You're just saying it does, but that's your argument.
I think you did, Aron. To be fair, I think you said you'd give him time, Aron. Go ahead. What is it?
Yeah.
Give you a minute or two, Muhammad.
I explained to you how the recital is proving that the world in front of you is a computer in a form of a computer science. Everything is rendered by God. What's your argument on the verses that I showed you that how God is rendering this world in front of you? Is it we are obviously creating it when it comes to computers, the computers being programmed. Who programmed the world around us?
Do you have any more presuppositional fallacies you want to wield?
You just call everything fallacy, but you don't answer it.
Why should I answer when you say who designed who programmed the universe? The universe is not programmed. There was no who involved.
But everything's under set instructions.
But it's not. That's your assumption.
But that's what science and physics is reversing those instructions so we can manipulate them.
No, it isn't.
Then what are we discovering in science? And completely random?
No. But you were supposed to discuss right now. I gave you a chance.
I am discussing. These are verses in the Quran. God said he's the fastest calculator.
But
he's
God
the fastest in computing.
This is people wrote the Quran, not God.
But I'm telling you, the world around you, when I'm dropping this pen, something is calculating these movements when it's jumping. It's just like on a computer. But unfortunately, I don't think you ever programmed.
It's natural forces and yeah. So there's
correct, but those natural forces, someone had to, well, there's a logic behind them. You can deduce the logic from those.
Or a person. And the point you were supposed to be making now was that you were supposed to show
putting it into computer science. That's still a science. God said he's cloning everything that we're doing that we can watch later.
Scientific, meaning that the Quran is going to have to fit scientific principles and methodologies.
But I'm giving you scientific topics that are in the recital, and you're just saying
you're giving me strange interpretations that are not supported by anything, and that's all you're giving.
So when God skipped a number for tripedialism, and there isn't tripedialism in the world, is that making the Quran wrong at that point? Is that not scientific?
When God skipped a number making tripedialism?
No, there isn't tripedialism in the world. When he said that creatures have 2, 4, and many legs, but he didn't mention the number 3.
Okay,
but how would Muhammad, how would a prophet, a man know that there's no 3-legged creatures?
I'd love to do that. But today, is the Quran scientific? I gave you a last shot. I'll give you one last shot, and then we're done. Show me how
the Quran itself is a science.
What?
The Quran itself is the science. It's trying to show you how to be the best human you can. But you still haven't answered.
And even if that was true, it wouldn't make the Quran a science. If the Quran was, in fact, it's not. But if it was a guidebook to make you a good person, if that statement was true, which it's not. But if you were right about that,
based on what you're saying, it's not just because it's not for you. But based on what?
It's not for anybody. It doesn't meet scientific methodologies or principles. It is not in any sense remotely scientific. It's not testable. It's not repeatable.
So is this scientific? If you get angry, right, there's going to be repercussions. And the more anger you show, the more repercussions you get. That's observable, and that's something you can theorize, and that's something you can practice.
Whether the Quran is scientific.
Brother, there's computer science. There's the
Yes,
science
there
of
is
just
computer science,
observation.
and reality is not computer science. You're making an unsupported assumption.
How is that
it's not
unsupported? It's very
relevant.
supported because I
It's
myself
not relevant to
programmed a lot-
whether the Quran is scientific.
but the Quran is aligning with with how computer programming works.
Except that the Quran opposes everything about scientific methodologies and principles, stands in stark contrast against them.
But then it supports evolution theory.
No,
and that's something that's against the Abrahamic religion for a very long time.
It doesn't. It gets everything wrong.
In regards to what? What's wrong when it's saying observe how God began creation?
Okay, you asked me a question and then walked all over the answer. I don't know what else I can do. I'm just going to sit back and shut up. You enjoy making your assertions. I think we're done.
Muhammad, this would be, let's see, a
So,
great
James,
chance.
I tell him a verse, he says, no, it's not. But he's not showing any proof.
Maybe we can do something like, does the Quran teach creation evolution? That's something that Aron usually enjoys talking about, is evolution, or let's see. So that
if you want to change the topic to talk about whether the Quran supports evolution, I'm happy to shift, but he's going to have to concede that the Quran is not scientific. We have to finish the debate we're already on before we start a new one.
Brother, it's the science of humanity. That's why the Islamic age works so well.
The science of humanity?
Yes.
What, anthropology?
No, the science of humanity in the sense that if someone's stuck to the system as a community, because the whole point of living is a community. It's not for individual sake. And the Quran that's what it's explaining. But
I'm under the impression that whenever I agree to a debate, I should probably list out definitions so that the person I'm going to be debating knows what they're talking about before they begin.
You're talking about the scientific, like of the natural law, but there's a lot of sciences in the world. There's a science of music. There's the science of, as I said, computer science, but that's not something you're willing to entertain.
I'm not willing to entertain computer science.
Correct.
I am certainly willing to entertain computer science. I accept that there is computer science. I do not accept that middle-aged or medieval fables about flying horses and guys who can talk to ants and other such bullshit. I don't accept that as science.
You see, now when you're talking about talking to ants, is there ability from people to talk to each other telepathically? Is that even remotely possible?
No.
Just no, there is no way for you to read or write thoughts.
Right.
Using technology.
Right.
And I can show you an article now.
Using technology, perhaps.
Yeah, using technology.
But there's no way to transmit, especially when we're talking about ants.
But hold on. My question is it possible using technology?
Is it possible we could talk to ants?
No. The ability to move thoughts with technology.
To move thoughts?
Thoughts.
We can move thoughts a number of ways, but it's not possible to talk to ants.
You didn't answer my question. Is it possible?
I did answer your question. I said
with technology. No, it's not.
Yes, I said we can move thoughts a number of different ways, whatever the hell move thoughts means, but we can't talk to ants.
Well, what I'm trying to explain is that if someone has the ability, which they just recently did in Israel, to take a thought from someone or from a machine and put it into somebody, and that person thought what was being written on the computer or what they've been trying to transmit, there is a possibility to do it without the technology. But you just have to get to a level where you're understanding more of the bigger picture than the small pictures and the details that you're
How do you determine whether something is possible?
Because if it's done by technology, then you could do it on standalone.
But how do you determine whether it's possible?
Because right now, I can't tell this pen to move. But when we understand how quantum works, we can get this pen to move.
Okay, so third time, same question.
We're relying on technology.
Okay, third time, same question. How do you determine whether something is possible?
Brother, it's determining it is if we can mimic it.
Is a what?
It's if we can mimic it, even if we're mimicking it with the technology, then we can do it on standalone. Something
I don't
can't
know
do it on
freaky
standalone.
What did you say?
If we can get it using technology, it can be mimicked without technology.
How would you know? Fourth time, same question. How would you know whether it's possible?
Because the sun is up there and the sun is bright, and they're making a secondary sun in China in the way they're creating it. It's something that's using the same chemicals, using technology to produce the same result.
What?
Brother, they're using the same technology.
Okay, so
they're
the way
using
that you
technology to do the same result.
The way that you determine whether somebody asks you, is this thing possible? Is it moving thoughts, talking to ants, whatever it is? The way that you determine whether some proposal is possible is because the sun is up there and the Chinese are building a new sun. Did I hear any of that right?
They're mimicking the natural world using technology because they can't do it themselves. So they're using what they reverse engineered from the world around them to reproduce it.
So when
that's
I
where
ask you,
the programming that everything around you is programmed.
When we ask whether it's possible to talk to ants, you're going to answer that question by determining that the sun is in the sky and that the Chinese are making a new sun?
My answer is that if we're able to reproduce it with technology, which we can, then there is a being that can produce it without technology.
Why would you make that assumption?
And that's where I made the comparison. There's a being that created.
Why did you make that assumption?
Because again, it's the comparative, because we made a sun, or there was a sun that was already there and we're copying it. So it was already possible in the first place.
So what makes you think that if somebody can synthesize something, anything, that means that there's a disembodied mind who used magic to do it in the first place? Why would you make that assumption?
Because something put it there in the first place. And that's where I'm coming down to the
programming.
programming.
Didn't put it there.
But it followed a set of instructions.
But it didn't follow a set of instructions. There are no instructions.
But the sun can't change its color unless there's
the sun can change its color, and there are no instructions. I don't know what else I can do here, James. Where can I go from here?
I like the story, the idea of the China second sun. Tell me more, Muhammad.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm trying to explain is the technology is mimicking the world that's around us. It's doing things that we can't do, but because we're able to mimic it, then it existed before us doing it. So there's something that's able to do it without us, because what we're mimicking is the world around us, understanding how it's programmed, reverse engineering it and doing it. For us to do those technologies, we need to put a set of instructions, which is mimicking the real world. At
this
that
is going to
point,
hurt my head.
We're running off someone's logic in the real world. Someone had to decide that if the sun is at a certain distance, the gravity on Earth is going to be X, and the gravity between the sun and the Earth is going to be X. That's what happened when God spoke for 6 days. He programmed all the sciences around us that we're just reverse engineering for us to understand. And that's clearly in the Quran, because he's not going against the natural law.
Might have to jump into Q&A soon. Let's see. Unless there are other final thoughts before we do. We have a lot of questions already, actually, so we can jump into it early.
Can we please just go to the Q&A, because I'm obviously not going to make headway with this guy.
But again, and to be fair, man, you said things that are not in the recital.
To be fair, I said things I can absolutely prove with documentation are definitely there. Do not call me a liar unless you can prove it, because I can prove my defense right now.
But don't call me deluded, because you're just claiming things then show me one verse. Show me one verse where God said the sun rotates around the earth, because you're just putting from your.
It will take me about 10 minutes to pull up the pages that I've written about this to get the citations, but I could do it in about 10 minutes. Like I said, if you want to do a discussion in writing where we have time to pull up the citations and I can give you the exact chapter and verse, I'll be happy to do that.
I don't understand.
You will never accuse me of lying again.
Brother, I had a book ready, waiting for you to tell me some verses for me to just cross-check on what you're saying. But you never did that. You just said it's all false. You brought no evidence to what you're saying. I showed you a few verses that you didn't want to even discuss.
You were supposed to say how the Quran was scientific. You failed to even try to address that argument.
No, but it's your definition of scientific. My definition of scientific.
It's not my personal definition. Is it the definition of scientific? I'm sorry if you're using a completely different lexicon than the rest of us.
There's the scientific method. But at the same time, I'm proving to you that the Quran didn't break any major scientific discoveries.
No, you were not proving to me. You were telling me that I don't know what I know, but I do know.
You don't.
I know. You're telling me the Quran doesn't say what I know that it says.
Might as well jump into the old Q&A. We do have a lot of questions coming in. And we do want to get to as many questions as possible, so I'm going to try to move fast. Do want to remind you guys that our guests are linked in the description, and that includes if you're listening via the podcast, folks, as we do put our guest links in the description box for each podcast episode, which is always uploaded usually within 24 hours of the live debate. This one coming in. Thanks so much, Oflamio, for your question. Said, did Yahweh program himself into existence before he existed? I think this is for you, Muhammad.
Well, you see, us as human beings, we have a start and end time. Everything around us has a start and end time. We don't understand the concept of infinity. That's not something that we can understand. And people don't believe in God because of that. And I have a proof on how the word, because every word when God is saying, it's becoming truth. So the testimony isn't there's only one God, the God, or there is one deity, the God. He said there is no deity except the God. So if you're going to take it as a technicality, you don't find evidence, or it's not evidence, but you don't find it easy to believe in the God, because he said there are no deities except the God. So people stop at there are no deities, impossible. But God made that extra part for the people who have a little bit more humanity, because you don't need to get into some people can believe on a very little. So obviously God didn't program himself. God put certain limitations to himself so that when on the day he reveals his full power, you'll see that the whole idea was for you to take care of the earth.
All right, and you stab me with a fork. Thanks for your question. It says, just because humans have an ability not found anywhere else in nature doesn't mean it's unnatural or superior. Plenty of animals have unique features. Take the mantis shrimp's eyes or a giraffe's neck. I think that might be for you, Muhammad.
Yes, but they don't have the ability to cover as much as we covered, just with our brain power. You know, like we were able to build more than what an animal can build. But on that note, God did say that the weakest homes is the spider, and you could see the strength of a spider, the spider web, actually the silk itself. But it's a weak home comparative in the ratio, because like you have this strong material and you're building something that's so flimsy. Is that true?
Yeah, 10 times stronger than steel per pound. That's awfully
correct,
flimsy.
but it's such a flimsy house for being something that's so strong.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Ollie P says, give me any decent-sized fiction book, and I'll find a way to cherry pick it and spin parts. And let's see. So those are the kind of questions where, folks, it's like, it's not really even a question. It's just kind of like a trollish super chat. We're looking for like more substantive, deep questions. This one coming in from You Stab Me With a Fork says, Christianity being wrong or bad does not say anything about the falsity or truth of Islam, though, Muhammad.
Well, I was trying to get to the point where the science of the Quran plays. The second you break one verse, you're going to be deluded. And when people started idolizing Prophet Muhammad, that's when the problems in the community started happening. And that's because anytime you're breaking a verse in the Quran, you're getting a little bit of delusions. But I can't explain that, because as soon as I start getting into it, you want to get back into the way we understand physics. But that doesn't, or the way we understand, like, you know, the sciences, when biology, chemistry, physics, but you don't apply that to a book where it's teaching you wisdom, and not for you to judge, but to judge yourself.
You got it. This one.
And sorry, but to this moment now, you just, when I told you, is the night still present when there's day, you said no. Yes, it is, brother. If you take a rocket ship through the midday and you go up, you get into space. That's night.
Yeah, no, it's not. And that's
it's not dark and it's not night. Me. After you go out of the atmosphere, that's not night.
That's correct. It's still not night.
This one coming in from Al-Azad Akbar. Actually, first up, Stupid Whore Energy says, what does the Quran say about why the 0-point energy of the universe doesn't cause a cosmological constant?
I apologize. I don't know what that question means.
No problem. Appreciate your honesty. This one coming in from Canadian Catholic says, well, one for you, Aron. Settle the debate, Aron, please. How tall are you?
Between 6 foot and 6'1".
You guys, this one coming in from Al-Uza Akbar says, I wish I could stay. I have to work. Hopefully you'll still be talking when I get there. Thanks for your support. And thanks. Prison Roof says, Aron, they quote Aron, and they say, Aron says, what makes righteousness? And they say, Muhammad says, quote, so an electron has an atom. I think they were saying...
No, an electron is part of an atom. You're put on this world to do up. You have a duty in the world. You either do it or don't.
Gotcha. You're saying that duty is what makes righteousness. Like if a person, whether or not they do their duty, is what
But
makes them
fulfilling the duty, the duty for the community rather for yourself. And that's what made the Islamic age so strong. It's because it was about everyone else, not yourself.
If
But we want to talk about how
if we had a conversation in writing where we could actually produce citations back and forth,
I believe that would have been helpful because you didn't. I gave you a few verses from the recital. You said no, but then you didn't come back with any verses showing where they're not scientific at all.
Am I supposed to remember chapter and verse for everything I've read in the Quran?
No, but I thought we were preparing it because if we want to do a Quranic scientific, show me where the Quran
I thought about having
having
my entire repertoire of everything I've written about the Quran just when they're ready so that I can control F on it. But I decided it's not going to be worthwhile. I mean, you're not going to. I had this conversation yesterday with a biblical literalist. With it in person, we're arguing in person. I tell her what the Bible says. No, it doesn't say that. Here, yes, it does say that. Here it is. She reads it. It says it doesn't say that. You just read that it says that. Well, that's not what it means. Well, I don't care that you want to interpret it. It means something else, but that's what it says. And then it refers to this other verse that says this other thing. No, it doesn't say that. Then I have to show her that verse. And then when it says it relates to this other verse that says that. No, it doesn't say that. Yeah, I got to show her the other verse. And then she had the audacity after 15 sessions of this to tell me that she read the Bible. And I said, no, I don't think you did. I think you got it confused with TV Guide.
For one point, you are always comparing the Quran to what people are doing outside of the Quran. Just the word itself is a standalone outside of what people in the community of Muhammad are doing nowadays. That's where the point I was trying to make. But I didn't have time.
The point you should have been trying to make is whether the Quran is scientific. That was the debate.
The Quran doesn't break any scientific discoveries.
But it does. That's a different discussion. That's a different discussion.
How's that a different
and I'll be
discussion?
happy to have that one in writing with you so that I can show you the citations that you're asking for. But that's not the debate we were supposed to have today.
James, is me proving that there are scientific evidence supporting things that are discovered in the world.
I would challenge you to find one of these items that actually is what you say it is, because I'm betting it's not. I've read the damn thing. I know better, and I can show it to you in writing. Take me up on that challenge. Let's get back to the debate we're having now.
Prison Roof says, how old was Aisha when Muhammad married her?
And that's open for debate. There's two schools of thoughts on that, but that's nothing to do with the recital.
So when you say recital, you mean
the Quran? That's not in the Quran or anything to do with the Quran.
Okay.
Because it's a school of thought. It's a school of submission. It's got nothing to do with Muhammad's personal life.
Fair enough. This one from Apostate Prophet says next debate.
How old the children are that he slept with has nothing to do with his personal life.
We don't know who he slept with. You don't have evidence.
Remember, in a legal defense.
This one coming in from
Brother,
Apostate.
you don't have evidence of that. You just have hearsay.
Next one from Apostate Prophet.
That's not scientific.
Says next debate, are Harry Potter books scientific? Answer yes, because they are a series of books and there is a pattern in them which is scientific. I think they're trying to use a parody argument to try to say that your argument isn't convincing, Muhammad.
All right, but at the same time, I showed you how the recital is supporting that there's still darkness over the day, and that's a miracle for back in the day. But
you did convey a misunderstanding that you have that I would love to correct. Yes, you did do that.
I would like to see what your feedback on that is. I showed you in the recital how it supports the discovery of how computers are, but that's something.
But it doesn't. And again, you misunderstood your own scriptures there.
But at the same time, there's a verse.
That's for a written discussion, so that I can show you the text, what it actually says, and then we can go over what it means.
All right.
But we don't want to do that kind of tedium in this debate.
Okay, but at the same time, you haven't produced one scientific discovery that's breaking the Quran. And I apologize. I thought
the moon did not split in two. The sun and the moon are not smaller than all the stars. The stars are not lamps to be thrown at devils. There is no firmament. The sun doesn't set in a muddy pond. The Barak did not transport itself from Mecca to Jerusalem by reaching 1 foot out to the horizon and taking a single step. No,
can you show me that verse?
Trip at best.
Can you show me that verse where it took one hoof?
People
and
cannot talk
Jerusalem?
to ants. Birds did not dive bomb elephants. I could spend a day if we want to talk about the stupid falsehoods that are in the Quran. We could make a day out of that, and I've already listed some of them.
I see.
And everybody's waiting for me to bring up this one. Semen does not come from between the backbone and the ribs. And
but here's the thing.
The development that is described in how the fetus develops, the Quran got that wrong too, because it copied bad science from that day. And there's nothing you can do about that, because it's just people writing the damn thing. That's why they wrote their own errors into it. As I said, that's a different debate. And now you have a list of a number of things that you can't defend. Now let's get back to the Q&A, which is what we're supposed to be at.
I'll give you a chance. I'm curious. The whole semen thing, Muhammad, what have you got?
So the Sulban Taraib, when they translated as the backbone and ribs, if you look at the actual language, sulb means something that's hard, right? And Taraib is coming from chest. The chest is the cleavage. It's a semen that's produced between something hard and a cleavage. But they don't want to write it in that way. But I can show you with breaking down the words. It's something hard in the cleavage. Isn't that where you need that action to create a
I just want to make sure I understood you.
Yeah, it's a sexual reference.
You said that semen comes from between something hard and the cleavage?
No, it's between the actions.
I think you're doing it wrong.
I think you're doing it's talking about the actions. But my friends, you're just taking it from your own interpretation. Because when it comes to the things that you said, aside from the miracles, the things that support science, you're just throwing them around. But look, there's a science in the recital. No matter what I say to you, you won't believe.
And we'll be able to prove the point.
Brother, nothing I will say to you
says how mountains pegs unto the earth. Where is the geological evidence for that?
Yeah, I got Hamza's sources to admit that was wrong. I was impressed that I managed to do that, to get a Muslim apologist to admit that argument was wrong.
That what?
He wouldn't admit that meant that the Quran was wrong, but he admitted that argument against isostasy was wrong.
Wait, the pegs on the earth don't stop earthquakes? The mountains don't help in causing less earthquakes?
The lithosphere flows right under them.
All right.
This one from Witwit says, Smile James, thanks for your kindness, and Greenpeace, thanks for your super sticker. Hudaf Haku says to Muhammad, how would you scientifically test a specific claim in the Quran, such as the existence of jinn? Which, for those of you unfamiliar, I think that usually means demons, right?
Demons. So exactly. So you can get an idea coming to you from just experiencing something or walking around. You get an idea, and that idea can imbue you. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with anything with religion. A jinn can take over you for all sorts of things. Now, I can show you a different proof, but you see, again, this isn't a book in a sense where you're taking it as a physics book. But God talked about the demons that were under Solomon's that were teaching people magic, and it's splitting the wife from it's splitting the wife from her husband. And now in something that's very known to us, and this is why we don't play with music and we're told to avoid music, is because if you see some of the artists nowadays, when they go on stage and they're literally, the words are talking about magic and there's magic in your eyes, and their words are worshiping something aside from the deity, which you don't believe in. I understand that. But as soon as an artist hits on stage, all the girls are in they're willing to go at him, if you know what I mean. And that's where, even if she's married, at that point she doesn't care, because that's the some of the magic that came down in Babylonia. But again, to you, that's just hullabaloo. But there's a day we can discuss that.
Says what book? They say Muhammad, you consider the Quran scientific. In that case, what book is not scientific and why?
Well, if it can't, to me, if you can't understand a pattern in a book, and if the book is contradicting itself, at that point it can't be too scientific. But I don't find contradictions in the recital. And actually, the thing that woke me up, on a personal note, the thing that made me believe it more is when I did read the recital, I saw that a lot of people aren't living how the recital is explaining it. And actually, they're negating a lot of things that's in the recital. One thing, it's a book of prophecy, and I can show you some prophecies, but I don't think you have time for that. And the funny thing is, we're coming to the end of times.
Wait, but what about I hate to do this, the original question, though, what book is not scientific? Is there
to me, anything that's fictional, that's contradicting itself, or if I can't...
Okay, so something that would be like full of abrogations, for example.
Well, you got to finish that verse. Anything that's been abrogated, we brought something better. So nothing's been, something was forgotten or abrogated, God brought a different verse that's better than it.
Or even in the Quran. Because there's
Yeah,
a
in the
list of
Quran.
abrogations in the Quran where the Quran.
There is no
abrogates
abrogation in the
itself.
Quran. The abrogation's already been done.
I suggest you spend 30 seconds on Google just looking up the abrogations in the Quran.
But you see, now
and
you're
know about
talking
it.
about they're the people sitting in the mosque teaching this religion or trying to explain there is no abrogation. They're just trying to fit it on their agenda.
This one coming in from Mark Reed says, Muhammad, was the moon split in half, and what is the scientific evidence for this?
Actually, that miracle came in truth when in 1974, I believe, when a piece of moon came on Earth. That same year, there was a doctor. He found a miracle in the Quran, which is called the Code 19. It was the same time the piece of the moon came on Earth. It was relatively in the same year. And this is, but again, like no matter nothing I would say to this man, he will believe, because he's got to a point where he's sealed. This is his way, and that's it. And his arguments is literally making up a bunch of verses which they don't exist, and then he gets
Except
mad.
that they do exist, and I can show that they do.
Yeah,
I can
you
show
keep
you that
saying
they do
that,
exist.
but you have to this moment right now.
I keep inviting you to have a written conversation so that I can show you all the citations you're asking for.
I'm talking about the
don't
natural
accuse me
world.
of not doing that. I'm being very.
I'm
clear.
not talking about the history of what happened with certain prophets. I'm talking about the natural world. We can talk about that at a later time.
What we were actually talking about is the things that are in the Quran. If I said they're there, they're there. And that you said they're not there because you don't know anything. And you've expressed how you don't know anything, both about science and apparently not about the Quran either. But we can have that discussion in writing elsewhere. Right now, I just want to get through the Q&A.
This one coming in from, can't pronounce your name because it's another language I don't understand, but they said, I propose to translate this debate to Arabic for free. Please say yes. This stuff is excellent. All right, well, sure, if you want. Omega Weapon says, prove horses fly, Muhammad. Is that in the Quran?
No, they didn't put any verse. There's no verse about Burak that was added in the hearsay later.
Gotcha. This one coming in from Prison Roof says, if Allah is so mighty, why are Muslims threatened by cartoons of Muhammad?
But this is the point I was trying to make earlier. The second you start to make distinguishment between the prophets, you're going to get in delusions. God said, don't make distinctions between the messengers. And they only defend Muhammad. That's why they're looking the way they are. That's why the whole civilization fell. That's why nobody even likes them anymore. It's just because they moved so far away from what they've been taught, and they moved so far away from the school, and there's only a small portion. The people that are trying to explain what I know, they're actually sitting in jail on death row in Saudi Arabia, because the Quran doesn't say that you have to kill someone that turned away from the religion. That was hearsay added later on. So you got to think of a rich man sitting, he doesn't care about the Quran, and he said, oh, Muhammad said this, and if you don't like it, I kill you. And anyone that opposed those people, oh, those people left the religion, kill them. But those people were powerful people, like living in current times. Those are the leaders that ruined the religion. The religion's been hijacked about 1,000 years ago.
So you're saying that what Surah 9:5 says, it doesn't say, or that was a change that was added later, but there are no abrogations at the same time.
No. It doesn't say anything about a horse. Nothing about a horse. The hearsays is outside. Yeah. Show me anything to do with a horse that's taking him to Jerusalem. There's no mention of Burak.
Animal.
There's no Burak, and there is no animal.
There is no Burak in the Quran.
There is no Burak. That's hearsay. That's in the Hadith.
The Quran
and if it is, it's not in the Quran.
Just want to be clear. You're telling me that of all the things that you have falsely accused me of getting wrong, you're going to tell me now that
Show me the word Burak in recital.
You're going to tell me that the Quran does not talk about the Burak.
Show me the word Burak in a recital talking about a horse.
But until I do, before I do, you're going to accuse me. You're seriously going to accuse me of getting that wrong. You're going to say that I'm lying about that.
Yes, there's nothing to do with a horse in the recital. There's nothing to do with a recital. A horse taking Muhammad from
I didn't say
Mecca.
a horse. I said a horse-like animal, the Burak.
Yeah, please.
And you're telling me that's not in the Quran?
No, that's not in the Quran. That's in the Hadith, the wisdom and the traditions.
Do I even need to?
The problem is,
let's just see in the Q&A. Let's just see in the chat if anybody else has read the Quran that already knows whether I even need to bother with this guy anymore.
This one coming in from Prison Roof says, Aron, can you draw a quick cartoon? Never mind. Okay, our Arabian Princess, thanks for your super sticker. And Amy Newman says, it wasn't mean or anything. It was just like Amy Newman says, I am holding an after show after the debate. Question for Muhammad as well. What would it take to convince you that the Quran is not scientific?
Well, actually, me myself, I lived with the book. So not growing up recently, like in the last 10 years. And a lot of people, and I told you this, James, a lot of people talk about the theory when it comes to religion, but very few of them actually live it. See, you said a lot of things. I actually didn't get mad, but I felt like I didn't have enough time to explain it because there is a lot to explain. The book itself applies to what's going on with America. You're talking about science and how science is proven. There's an event that happened 20 years ago, relatively, which breaks more scientific reasoning than it does the
Relatively 20
Quran
years
does.
ago?
Just one second. And we're the community of Muhammad is in a similar place where the Jews were before World War II, not to the same extent, but there's a lot of hate on us. And it's because of certain events that happened before, and it's in the same criteria where it does mimic what the Quran is saying. Because in the community of Muhammad nowadays, if I say something against them, it's death, or you left the religion, or it's not the mainstream, so you don't know what you're talking about. And it's the same thing if I question certain events that happened, like events that happened 20 years ago. It's you're unpatriotic, you're a terrorist, and you're not allowed to question it. And there's less science there than there is in the Quran when it comes to just the natural science. I'm not talking about the birds and talking to the ants and the things where it was a miracle for the person. I'm talking about just the pure natural physics world. And yet people are so quick to jump at people who are trying to be righteous, and yes, a lot of them around them are giving them a bad example, but they forget themselves. And now look at the oppression in America, and that's all detailed for us.
Wait, what was okay? So in
So
two
James,
sentences,
what was the question that he didn't answer?
in two sentences? What would it take for you to convince you that the Quran is not scientific?
I have enough evidence for myself in my personal life that it is the truth.
Okay,
Because
so nothing. His answer
nothing.
is nothing. He has the
Absolutely
same
nothing.
answer as Ken Ann.
This next one from Rebelr75 says, "Does the sun set in muddy waters, Muhammad? The Quran says so."
But it was in a literal sense. And the word sunset doesn't exist in Arabic. It disappears. Gharab. So gharab min ayn. I can't see him anymore. But when he's talking about that, he's seeing the sun go into an ocean, because he's talking about Alexander the Great when he went from one side of the world to the other.
You got
So
it. This
he
one coming
reached
in.
the end of the continent.
Cole Beasley says, "Muhammad, without committing a fallacy, what method did you use to determine that Islam is true?"
For me, it's just I found how the recital had nothing to, or the Quran had nothing to do with what the world was living in. Like the world we're living in as a Muslim community, it doesn't align to what was been said. And as soon as I made those realizations and I realized that my own people are idolizing the Prophet more than they should, and I stopped doing that, the world became easier for me, a lot easier. And I'm getting my own answers. I wish I could have time to explain that, but it's difficult.
But you said the method that you used to determine that Islam is true. Part of that was that because you realized that people were idolizing the Prophet. Is that what you said?
Yes,
something?
and they were going against the Quran, and that's why they weren't being helped. When I started upholding the values in the Quran, I got helped. But people don't like what I say. Like even the Muslim community will tell me shut up and go because they rather just talk about Muhammad all day.
Okay.
But the recital itself, it's standalone. I love the traditions of Muhammad, and I like this wisdom that aligns with the recital, but most of it doesn't. And this is the problem we're facing. What I wanted to talk about today is
sorry. It's just there's so many questions, and I'm sorry to do that to you. It's just that I want to jump to the next one. That's it. Keep it in the back of your mind. You might be able to spin it into an answer to one of these questions if it's relevant. Arabian Princess says, "Muhammad, why are there grammatical mistakes?" Sorry, so nothing to do with it's. They say why are there grammatical mistakes in the Quran?
You got to show me which verse you're talking about, because there's different recitations, but it's not grammatical errors, because the Arabic is very clear on its syntax and its grammar. You can't make them very easily a grammar error in the Quran. But it's a thought process. It's not like dots and punctuations, and this is where it's open for interpretation.
This one coming in from Harry P. Ness, praise God, says, "What is the most amazing scientific principle gleaned from the Quran ahead of science?" So I think they're saying, was there something that the Quran maybe predicted, or maybe that it even just said, let's say theoretically, as just a crisp little example, let's say the Quran said that, if you wash your hands often, you will get sick less. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they already knew that back then, but anything like that.
Honey is a very good healing substance.
Gotcha. This one coming in from, do appreciate your question as well. Atheist Velociraptor says, for Muhammad, what are the two schools of thought on the ages? I'm not sure what they mean by that.
Ages of Aisha.
Oh, okay.
Some trying to pass it off as 9, and some people are trying to pass it off as 16. But no, sorry, 9 is when they're saying he did like whatever, and the other one is 18. But there's 3 years versus. My friend, you could laugh. There's evidence showing both ways.
You got it. And this one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Doc Pluroma says, the Quran nowhere talks about suns orbiting the universe. It speaks of the sun, quote, around the earth, unquote, through.
And that the sun and the moon travel in their courses with God's permission. So
which means it's not falak, it's not an orbit. وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍ لَهَا means the sun is moving to a certain set location that has to go. It's
Thank
not
you
an
for
orbit
admitting that error, because the sun doesn't move in a location relative to the earth.
They said in parentheses, they said that the sun is moving through the sky from the east to the west as observed in its movement from sunrise to sunset.
Where?
I don't even know who this is for sure. It doesn't address who it's for. They just, in reading it as a whole, they said the Quran nowhere talks about suns orbiting the orbit in the universe. It speaks of the sun, quote, around the earth, and they put in parentheses through the sky from east to west as observed in its movement from sunrise to sunset.
There's the sun, yes, showing around the earth, but it's also saying that the sun is going to a certain spot that it's already been preordained where it's going to go.
And then it appears on the other side of the planet with God's permission.
No, because nothing was talking about this. Actually, وَالْأَرْضُ تَمُرُّ فِيهِمْ, which is almost like a spin, but those are open for interpretation. That's I think that's the problem where me and you are going to have, because you're looking for the literals, but people are getting it from the interpretation. Actually, robots. There's an interpretation that robots are in the Quran, because I use the word dabba, a grounded mobile object. Or a grounded mobile creature, and God said that he's going to produce the creature from the earth that's going to speak to them, that a lot of people were not aware from God's proven signs.
This one from Jay Fort. Thanks. I didn't see your question, but let me know if you have it in the live chat. Can you just tag me with Modern Day Debate and I'll read it. Search for Truth says, Quran 21:33, quote, and he it is who created the night and the day and the sun and the moon. He made the sun and the moon subservient. Each one of them rotates around its orbit.
Which verse? Sorry.
They said Quran 21:33. While Muhammad's looking that up, I want to remind you folks, our guests are linked in the description, and that includes the podcast. As we put all the debates on the podcast within 24 hours, you can find both Aron and Muhammad's link there too. What have you got for us, Muhammad?
It's saying that it's spinning in an orbit in the sense that it's the sunrise sunset here, but it's not in a sense that it's orbiting the earth, because it has nothing to do with it's orbiting the earth. Because the claim was that it orbits the earth.
The stars are smaller than the moon.
The stars are smaller than the moon? No, no. It's saying the moon is a part where you see the stars, but it never said that the sizes.
The firmament.
There's a fixed alignment of the suns or stars, obviously.
They can be used as projectile weapons when
you see, there's a school that I can show you a proof where that there is understanding, but if you're not believing in angels and devils in the first place, which is
I would suggest that you stray away from proof. That word doesn't mean what you think it does.
But you don't believe in the unseen, so why are you questioning what devils or how devils get hurt when they're trying to? Because you see, the whole planet or the billions of light years that we're seeing around us, that's just the first sky out of 7. That's how much God programmed around us.
That's not how this medieval folklore was written. It was written for the understanding that there is a dome over the sky, or there's a dome over the earth, and that the sun and the moon are the two great lights, and that the stars are all smaller and can be used as projectile weapons by angels to throw at devils when they get too close.
When they try to listen to the truth, yes, that's it. That is
not
actually
the truth.
happens.
They're trying to listen to what God says.
No, what the angels said.
Anything but the truth.
يسمع لملأ الأعلى وإذا التقط ملأ الأعلى, which is the angels at this point. When they get close to what an angel is trying to send to a human, that's when they get beat, because they're not allowed to go out of that sky. Wait. No, sorry. Exactly. I'm remembering the verse and then translating it back to you. The Mala al-Ala is the high assembly, which is the angels.
Right.
One coming in from.
So God's heaven is a hotel, in the top of the sky, in the top of this firmament. And
No,
when devils get too close to that, then the angels will grab the fixed stars out of the firmament and throw them at the devils. They'll be used as missiles.
Actually, it's more so like an onion because there's 7 layers of skies. So when they're trying to get close to the other sky, that's when they're getting hurt, so that they either die or go back.
They've all got to be concentric because there's only one Earth. Otherwise, if you want to talk about these 7 skies, then you have to.
No, God said lane. He didn't say Earth. So the same principles that apply to lane applies to all the planets.
If we're going to discuss the Quran, I suggest both of us should read it first.
This one coming in
Brother,
from
I read it a lot, but it's just, you're just throwing things in me.
Mr. Monster says, how can the sun prostrate behind the throne of a god, Muhammad?
Sorry, can I see where the sun prostrates behind the throne of God?
Correct.
Yep.
Because God is on top of the sun. It's not going to go behind the God.
See what I said about maybe you should read the Quran before debating it?
I did, brother. I have most of it memorized. But you're just throwing verses, and anything I say, you say it's all. It's fallacy.
This one coming in from Cog. I didn't see your question, Cog. If you
In
haven't,
your
throw it into
opinion.
your live chat. Justin,
And can demonstrate it too.
No, in your opinion.
And I can demonstrate it too, so it's not just.
That's
an
fine.
opinion.
This one coming in from Justin Panay. Let me know if I pronounced it right. Says, can you just say hello to my wife, Donna, please? Donna, hello, how are you? And they said she loves this channel, and I know she's probably watching tonight. Thanks, that's encouraging. Well, thanks, Justin, for your support, and thanks, Donna, for watching. We hope you're doing well. And Mr. Monster says, does life truly need a creator, or is it chemistry?
Chemistry.
Well, I believe the world around me is rendered by God. And it's very easy for him to put it down and bring it back in a different creation.
You got it. And this one coming in from Dark Indeed Dean says, Muhammad, why is Islam true versus the former Bible or the Latter-day Saints version?
Actually, the recital was sent to fix with a lot of problems that they were having with the Christian and Jews. So it's answering a lot of their questions. So the Quran already answered the problem with Palestine and Israel, but I don't think we have time to talk about it. And it's very short because the children of Palestine are technically the seed of Israel because the seed of Israel can't be a religion.
You got it, and thank you very much. Cole Beasley says, Aron, cheers. Hope you get at least 10% APV. And Cog says, for Aron, I assume Isaac Newton's book, Principia, is scientific, yet Einstein improved on it. Does this make Newton's book unscientific? Why or why not?
Well, no, science has to be able to change. That's the purpose of science, is to improve.
Actually, no. Is Einstein then a deluded person for believing in God?
I'm sorry, what?
Is Einstein deluded for believing in God?
Since he did not believe in God and expressed that very clearly multiple times, then no.
I think you just make up things and then you believe them.
Except that I can prove them. And in this case, I can prove them with
show me where Einstein didn't believe in God.
Yeah, citations from the writings of Einstein in letters that he wrote to other people, yes.
Sure.
Yeah, where he said that it is a lie that has been systematically repeated, that he has this belief in God, and that it was a Jesuit that was lying about him at the time. And in another quote, he says that his God is Spinoza's God, where basically he worships nature, that he's never believed in a personal God, that he thinks that the Bible or Scripture is just basically fairy tales, and that all of this is just childish foolishness, and that there is nothing that could change his opinion about that. So no, he said that from the religious perspective, that Christians should consider that Einstein was an atheist.
That's what he said? All right.
Yes.
Thank you. I learned something new.
This one coming in from McKinnon Mitchell says, well done, Aron. You have a fan. You have a fan out there, Aron. And let me see. I know there are other questions. Let me just load this up. 2 seconds. In the old live chat, if you, let's see, if you happen to have a question recently. Otherwise, we had so many questions that had come in already that I hadn't recorded them from the live chat. Let's see. This one is from myself. Says, for Muhammad, if Islam is proven to be false, would you still believe in it?
But you see, when you're saying Islam is proven false, everything's submitted to God. So all the electrons, all the animals, all the trees, everything is submitted to that instructions that God gave it. And that's very clear in the recital. Everything in the skies, everything in the land is submitted to God. The only religion or the only law is the law of submission. It's how much you're submitting yourself into the world around you, and that everything's in the hands of God. Aaron is talking is just because that's how God programmed him. That's what he chose upon himself. Those are the roads. So there's
but
nothing I can say to
myself. If
Yeah, you
were
did. You made your own
correct,
decisions.
if
But at
you
the
were,
same
no, I
time,
didn't. According to the Quran, I did not. The
yeah, you
Quran says
did.
over and over again that God decides who's going to believe and who is not going to believe, and then He's going
Yes,
to punish us for
by what
however
you did.
He
So,
decided that I would hold this position. Now, of course, there is no God, and the question that was put to you is what would change your mind about that. And again, you dodged the question because there's
no,
nothing that would
I
change
said
your
there's
mind
not,
about
because
it.
I
You
completely
are
submitted. I'm
beyond
getting my
reason.
results. I'm getting my results because the clear signs happen to those that have no doubt in him. I have no doubt that I have absolutely no doubt that God exists. I know
So
God
that's the
exists, and He
definition of a
revealed Himself in
delusion.
His ways to me.
That's the definition of a delusion. So let's continue
In
on.
your opinion,
No, it's not. It's this is according to psychiatric agencies. They've defined a delusion
yeah,
as a
but that's
secure
my
belief that is
point.
not supported by evidence that is still maintained even against evidence to the contrary.
But then you're talking that every prophet is a psychiatric case. That it's impossible
Correct.
to have anything on this scene. That's
Well,
in your
not
opinion.
every
That's what
one
I'm
of them
saying.
is a psychiatrist. Some of them are just criminal.
Some of them are just criminals.
Yes.
I understand. Okay, but you see, again, that's
This one
your
coming in.
way of seeing the world around you.
Cole Beasley says, still trying to figure out if the Quran is scientific. And if you want to respond
Okay,
to that, I
to
can give you
me, aside from the miracles that was placed down on people when they had that certainty that God existed and God showed Himself to them in His way, the Quran doesn't break any major scientific breakthroughs, and it aligns with a lot of things, from computer science to physics to biology to the geology. I understand Aaron has different ideas because he wants to get down into certain details that could be theories at this point, and at the same time, it is open for interpretations. It's not breaking any major scientific breakthroughs. And on that note, it proves evolution, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, so the Quran gets practically everything wrong, embarrassingly, stupidly wrong. It says that we are created from a glob of fluid. There's no mention about the female egg or any of that, and it says that semen comes from a place where semen doesn't come from. It goes into a lot. Everything it says about biology, about the development of the fetus, is wrong. Things happening at the same time when actually happened in a different sequence. All of that. These are just mistakes that Galen had made, centuries earlier, that Muhammad copied into his book. So,
now, question for you: is there anything in the world that would make you believe that God exists aside from Him showing you Himself?
Well, yeah, if there really was a God, but then if there really was a God, then we wouldn't have apologists, and I wouldn't be arguing with people like you.
I appreciate that. I'll take that as a compliment. But what I'm asking is, what kind of proof would you be looking for?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What kind of proof would you be looking for? Because to me, I think the case that this world is being rendered and God gave you a computer is a clear sign that if you could do this with a computer, I could do it with the real world. You're doing it virtually. I'm doing it in the real world. That's my argument to you. And that's very scientific, because that's a new science that we got into, which is, algorithms. I wonder where algorithms came from.
Except that it's not remotely scientific, and it also casts your God in the role of a liar. So the way that we understand that our senses work, that our the olfactory region, we're able to detect molecules in the air of certain substances, and that these molecules or even atoms that our nose can detect, we're able to identify what element that is, and this is how we pick up scent. And we know how we get photons reflected off the cones in our eyes. This is how we pick up visual
Thank God for programming that, so we can be able to do that.
The vibrations in the atmosphere, that was how we pick up sound. But according to what you're saying, then everything is imaginary. It's just we all live in the matrix. And so not only do none of these things exist, they in fact don't exist. And your God has created we have these explanations that we can test and demonstrate that are in fact not real, because your God is the ultimate liar.
No, what you just explained with the photons and how the reaction or the vibrations is causing for us the ability to hear, that is God's programming. That we can't change that or decide that ourselves. Something decided that. That to me is God. Whoever programmed this world around me, for the way it acts, and the way the way you're reversing it and understanding it, those words are God's words.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question, from 2 seconds loading it up. Dark Indeed Dean says, why is the Book of Mormon not true, Muhammad?
Because John Smith claimed, I believe his name was John Smith, he claimed that he was a prophet, but there was no prophets after Prophet Muhammad.
And there was no prophets before Muhammad either. There was no prophets when there was Muhammad.
That's in your opinion. There's a lot of prophecies that came true.
Well, if you can just assert whatever you want to believe as if it's true, then I should just
Oh,
be
well,
able
yeah,
to
that's
assert
the
whatever
freedom
I
of
want to
choice.
believe
That's
as
the
if it's
freedom of
true,
faith,
right?
freedom of belief.
No,
You
we,
know,
no,
just
that
because
should
you,
be that should be categorized as lying. If we just make up stuff and say that things are true when we don't know that they're true, then there are
but
people
at
who
the
do
same
call that
time,
lying, but they're not religious people. Religious people get to do that all the time. You just
but what if you're
say
the one
whatever you want
lying
to
in a
believe
sense?
as if it's true, and then it becomes absolute truth instead of a lie.
No, but you could be lying in a sense when you are understanding that the world around you has been programmed and someone set that logic.
But
and
I
whoever
don't
set that
understand
logic,
that.
that's
I
God.
understand opposite of that.
But you see, you can grasp the perspective. Just for you not to agree with it doesn't make it untrue. That's my point.
But there's also no truth to it.
Yes, there is, because look at the computer.
No, the truth is what the facts are, what you can demonstrate to be true. You can't show that there's any truth to what you're
You
asserting.
could reverse
You're
engineer
just
a
assuming
program.
it and
You
asserting it as if it's true. Now, if it were possible, I would say that it was possible. If it could be, I'd say, well, maybe that is. But that would be the honest thing to do. But what you're doing is not saying that maybe it's like that. You're saying it is like that, as if you know. Because pretending to know things no one even can know is what religion is all about.
But aren't you the one doing the exact same thing? You're saying that you're just asserting an assumption that nothing is programmed around you. That just, but it obviously is, because you're reverse programming.
But it's obviously not. If there is no evidence for something, as I said in my opening presentation, what is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence, especially when there's not even a possibility present.
But if we could mimic the location,
if we could,
of the
but
sun,
since we can't, then you don't have anything to go on. You should not say things are true unless you can show the truth of it. And you say things are true. You can't demonstrate them. You're just asserting them. And there are people who would say that that is dishonest.
Well, sir, the thing that I'm trying to explain to you is that gravity is the way it is on Earth is because of the distance and the size of Earth. Is that true or not?
Essentially, yes, having nothing to do with the assertions of God.
But if you get something, if you get to something the same size of Earth, from the same size of distance, same distance from Sun, would the gravity on that Earth be the same?
If it was made of the same stuff and the same percentages.
Yeah. All variables are the same. Is that yes or no?
If the same thing, the same place is going to weigh the same, yes.
Correct. So my point is that law has been programmed that way.
And you just made an assertion, a statement of fact, as if it was a fact, but it's not a fact. It's not a demonstrated fact. You could have been honest, and you said, well, I think, or I believe that maybe this is, but that's not what you did. You said that this is. That was a statement of fact for which you have no evidence, no way to demonstrate it. You don't know what you are pretending to know. You are alleging facts that are in fact not facts, pretending to know things you don't know. That is called lying.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. And want to remind you folks, it's been 3 months since we've done the members only chat. I'm going to flip it on for 5 minutes. Highly encourage you, become a member. That helps us put on amazing debates. And this one coming in from Ryan.
Show me where the horse was, by the way.
Ryan
the
Pope
Barack,
says,
you mean that is a horse-like animal and
show
not
me
a
that.
horse?
You still didn't show me that.
Somebody in the chat.
Oh, why are you going to the chat? Show me it.
Because
then
anybody
that's
can look
lying.
this up. You can
That's
do it
literally
in a
lying.
second. All Barack, it'll show you right where it is.
Yeah, show me Burak.
this one coming in from, do appreciate
And
your question.
what apology am I going to get from you when I demonstrate this?
Oh, you already have my apology, my friend. I'm sorry for what
I
you're
already
going
have
through.
your apology.
Yeah, I'm sorry
you
for what
called
you're
me a
going
liar,
through.
and you've already apologized for that.
Well,
You've already
show me the
apologized for
verse.
your false accusation.
No. I'm sorry for what you're going through.
This one coming from Ryan Pope says to Muhammad, what happens in the afterlife to non-Muslims that don't find Islam convincing?
Well, you see, the recital is very clear that there's people who believed and were righteous from, say, the Christian faith or the Jewish faith and other faiths that did care about other people and did believe God in the last day. They're saved. They go to heaven because your God is very merciful. He's not trying to send people to hell. It's only people that built themselves to hell. They built that hell in their mind that everything is negative. Everything is, arrogant, stubborn. I'm very good at everything. Everyone else is wrong. And those are people building their own hell. That's because you are building your own hell and you're building your own heaven. That's very clear in the Quran.
This one coming in from, do appreciate your question. Atheist Velociraptor says for Muhammad, please explain what science is, defining it, and how it works. Demonstrate you understand science, please.
Okay, so for me, the scientific method is the ability to observe the world, to get the information, and then from whatever information you deduced, and it's conclusive, and it's repeatable, and it's explainable with proper either, let's say, mathematical proof, then you could apply it to something else. And at that point, it's technology. Is that a very simple basic of what science is?
This one coming in from Cole Beasley says the laws are described, not prescribed.
See, then that's where I believe, no, it is actually been prescribed, because then you would notice a lot of more random things at that point, because it would have been just all trial and error.
You got it. And thank you very much for your question. This one coming in from 2 seconds.
So Surah 17, the night journey, is the one that talks about the Barak. Everyone can 17? Look that up. I will be happy to put my link in there because I don't lie.
Yeah, so that's Surah 17. No, that has nothing to do with Barak.
Except that it talks about
that Barak. Word. No horse, nor the name Barak.
So,
are you sure you read that right?
Yeah, it's just Googling it. You say Surah 17, 1 of the Quran, the Prophet Muhammad in the span of one night, journeys from Mecca.
Brother, and the that's their explanation. That's my point. That's my point. You're talking about what people explain in their own fairy tales. But God never said anything about Burak nor a horse in that actual surah. You're talking about someone else's interpretation. Show me where in that book, because the only thing it says is God took Muhammad from from Mecca to Jerusalem, the farthest mosque, or the furthest temple, by the way. Because mosque, if you go back when the Muslims took over Spain, they had a word very similar to mosque, masjid. How?
So
Masjid.
Because this is written
when
in
it came
English,
to English, it became mosque.
The reference to the Barak says, then a small white animal, which is smaller than a mule and bigger than a donkey, was brought to me. The animal's step was so wide that it reached as farthest point.
Brother, which verse is this? You're talking hadith again. I'm talking about the word of God, not the word of people attributing to Muhammad. I think you're failing here, because it's not. You're just making assumptions about the Quran that it's not there.
I gave you 17,
not the word of God.
I gave you Surah 17. It's listed here. Even the word Barak even appears in the English translation that I was reading by Abdel Halim.
Brother, where? Tell me the verse number. You're just making things up.
This question from Victor Hallock says, for Muhammad, who was the first Muslim? Was it Muhammad? And then
Adam.
They put in parentheses 39:12. I think they're quoting the Quran.
Adam.
Then they say Abraham, and they say in parentheses 7:143, or Jacob, parentheses 2:132.
Well,
so I think they're saying that the Quran. Hold on, I'm not even done with the question. They're saying that the Quran. I think they're trying to argue or say that it has a contradiction there. Yes.
Well, what's happening is these prophets are coming during the times of ignorance. So they're the first submitter within that group. That's why I'm the first submitter. He's talking to his people. It's not God saying they're the first submitters. It's they said I'm the first submitter. But the first actual submitter in the human being is Adam.
Gotcha.
He submitted his will to God. Everything's in the hands of God. Everything's getting done by him. I don't need too much science because I already believed.
This one coming in from Apostate Prophet says, the animal is in the, all caps, authentic hadith, not the Quran. Then says,
I appreciate that.
They say,
for your
quote,
honesty.
A white animal bigger than a mule and smaller than a horse. And then they say, Sahih Bukhari 3207.
But you see, those are the hearsay. This is the reason why you left that religion, is because of the hearsay. Because that made no sense to you. I can understand.
So you're saying you can discard the hadiths?
Most of them, yes. And this is where
How would you know which ones you can discard, which ones you cannot?
If they contradict the Quran,
and if the Quran contradicts the Quran, then what do you do?
If the Quran contradicts the Quran, I yet to see that. That's where I'm so happy with that book. But I apologize. I'm still waiting for the word Barak. But yes, that gentleman that had a debate with Ali Dawah, and Ali Dawah wanted to, show off, which is against the recital, and that's when Ali Dawah looked bad. But you know what? He tried his best. But again, they're going off the hadith more than the Quran, because the Quran says that. The Quran says there's going to be a time where the people are going to forsake the book. They just repeat it, but they're not thinking about it because they're not allowed to think about it.
This one coming in from Cole Beasley. Sorry, there's several questions I'm behind on. Said the laws are described, not prescribed, Muhammad.
I understand them, but I believe that they're pre-programmed and they're just going to where they're supposed to go. So it's the thing like evolution. Like, God said that there's a cell, and then this cell is going to end up like a human. How it transforms, that's the programming that it's unveiling itself. Like we're having the same thing. So us as a human, we can put certain thoughts in ourselves and we can let go of certain thoughts. And the whole point is to let go of everything because death is coming.
This one coming in from Greatest Ever says predestination or free will in the Quran.
Both. So predestination in the sense that everything around you has been programmed. You have the choice to take any path you want. So you could, for example, take the path that God doesn't exist. That path is set out. So you're going to be a very scientific person. You're going to see logic and deduce in a certain way, while someone says, no, there is a God. And they don't need those extra proofs for themselves because they're seeing it in their own perspective. Those are the polar opposites. So I believe that everything has been pre-programmed, but you have the choice to take what you want. And there's a verse saying that, some people say, well, we wouldn't have been polytheists except God made us that way. No. You pick that on your own.
This one coming in from Just In Prince or Arabian Princess says, Muhammad, Quran says it's explained in detail. Can you explain what Messiah means without going outside the Quran?
No, well, you see, the Quran tells you that God sent the Torah, which is guidance for people and a light. So he's telling you to read the first 5 books of the Old Testament. He's saying that the people of the gospel should judge what is in the gospel. So he's saying to you that there is a gospel, which is the first 4 books of the New Testament, and any contradictions, the Quran supersedes them. So this is where we get the idea of the Antichrist, and you could clearly see whatever his name is, Kanye West calling himself Jesus, deceiving many, but anything that's contradicting the Quran, that's where the Quran takes a point when they're saying Jesus is a third of a God, but then you got to think of it was God 0.6666% for 3 days, and it's not a one at that point. And that's where God is supporting the gospel, the Psalms of David, and the Torah. And again, the recital is just correcting all the mistakes that people added later.
Coming in from
and the funny thing is, the same science that you're using for to deduce the truth, you have to do on the Hadith.
This one coming in from Lands says, Jesus for the win. Justin Panett says, can we get both participants to agree on a definition for what constitutes, quote, scientific evidence?
Well, I
need scientific evidence that the recital has the word Barak.
It has to adhere, it has to be, pertain to scientific methodology and principles. And be based on those.
I apologize, but if I say that science is based on scientific methods to deduce or to extract how valid an hypothesis is that incorrect?
I wasn't able to hear that. Sorry.
I said for me to believe that using the scientific methods to deduce results or conclusions using the scientific method, is that a science or not?
If you use the scientific method, then by definition it would be science. But if you're just believing authoritarian dictates because of the logical fallacy of circular assumptions, then that is not science.
But then that's where I'm coming to a point where the recital is a science on its own.
But it's not. It's just a circular assumption for which you will never accept any evidence that it's wrong.
Actually, I would. I really would, because I put it under that lens.
Somebody asked you before, what would it take to change your mind? You said nothing.
At this point, no. But there was times where I did look at it at a very,
so at
very
this point,
difficult.
what would it take to change your mind?
But at this point, I got my clear evidence that it's truth.
But at this point, what would it take to change your mind?
My friend, I got my clear evidence from the natural world.
So at this point, the answer is nothing.
Nothing.
So you're beyond reason.
But it's the same to you.
No, it isn't.
But you're making the assumption that you're correct.
I know what I know, and I can show what I know.
It's impossible for something to be better than you and make itself command this world and be completely invisible. That's impossible for you because you can't imagine it. But me telling a dog that I can take a picture from one side of the earth to the other, he can't believe that, but he can see it happen.
You have no idea what you're talking about. You're trying to cast a position on me that I do not have.
Well, you called me a liar. I'm still waiting for the word Barak.
Well, as was pointed out,
I think you make your own assumptions.
Surah 17 talks about how Muhammad went to.
The devil decorates your deeds, thinking that you're guided, but you're definitely.
There is no devil.
Yes, there is. And you went to one of his conventions. You were thinking it's jokes, but
but there is no devil, and it wasn't one of his conventions.
Oh no, there is satanic
coming in
thoughts.
From David says for Muhammad in Surah sad 30 through 36. It speaks of Solomon. Thank you. Says it speaks of Solomon slaughtering horses and flying the skies in the skies. Can he explain that?
No, in that verse is that Solomon, he used to have a love for breeding horses and having a lot of horses. And then he realized that he had too much love for the horses and he was forgetting to remember God and what he was supposed to do. So he got upset and he started flanking these horses, but then he went and turned back to God. That's the story. There's nothing about flying horses or killing horses there. He's just, he's just upset. So he was hitting them because he was loving the worldly life over the hereafter. That's what happens with a lot of people. They'd rather have it now than later. But I believe that there's a later. I believe I was offline. I came online, and he's going to put me offline. He's going to bring me back online. I believe that because I can see it in front of me.
This one coming in from XX WLZ. XX says, "What is his view on sex slavery?"
Oh, brother, there's no such thing as sex slavery in the recital. One of the best things you could do is, in the word abid or worship in Arabic actually means, like, to me, when I'm worshiping God, I'm working for God. So when I see a hungry person, I go feed him. When I see something that needs to be done, I do it. Not for myself, because that's my responsibility. But having a sex slave, that's absolutely nothing to do with the recital.
Except that it actually does go into detail multiple times about
Can you show me where, please?
How there will be virgins created for you in heaven, and they exist only for you. They didn't already exist on the earth. So you get to go to heaven. You get to take however many wives that you have or wanted, but then you also get these virgins that were specially created for you there. They're essentially sex robots.
That's not true. They're your wives in heaven. It's just like how you have.
They were created to be your wives. They don't have any will of their own.
Just like how girls were created for you to be their husbands. In you're a husband of a wife. Yeah, it's the same mentality.
So then you go to heaven and you have these people that were created. They're virgins, and they exist just for your sexual pleasure. That's the purpose of their existence.
That's not true. They're your wives there, as well, your wives. So you still have to work in heaven, just like how you're working here. But there's no more stealing from you. You get to build. You get to do whatever you want without asshole or negative people breaking your work, stealing from you, making everything dirty, breaking, causing war. That's what heaven is the ability to of what we're doing here, but without the pain.
For one more, Ollie P says, if the Quran is open to so much interpretation, what is to say that Aron's interpretation is wrong, Muhammad?
That's not what I'm saying. He's going against other verses in the recital, but yes, the recital is a book of prophecy. So there's some things that they're discovering in science that's aligning with verses in the Quran, and there's things that if you do yourself, you can recognize yourself in the Quran. That's where it fits. It's a way of thinking for you to submit totally that I'm gonna die, and if I'm gonna sit here and think about how much my bank account is, imagine that you still have that thought process while you're in the grave. You're going to think the whole time in your grave, you're going to torture yourself. How much is my bank? Someone's going to rob me. But if I die, I'm going to be like, it's in the hands of the Lord. So I'm all right. I know that's funny,
I'm not going to be thinking,
but there's no way to prove that. I personally died, and I still had my thinking. My heart stopped, everything stopped, but I was able to think. So that kind of woke me up that, hey, I'm building my own hell.
This one coming in from D. Boder, let me know if I'm saying it right, said Surah 27:18, scientific evidence of ants talking?
But you see, these are now we're talking about miracles. This is not, but do ants communicate?
This one coming in from David.
Do ants communicate?
Do ants communicate?
Yes.
In a way that Solomon couldn't. I think it was Solomon that Solomon could interpret and understand. No.
There's communication between ants. Is that correct?
Between ants and between people, but they don't. They're not. They're not.
Can people communicate with cats?
Solomon cannot have had a conversation with the ants.
Those people that say they're dog whisperers or whatever. Is that possible?
It's possible to whisper to a dog, yes, but it's not possible for Solomon to have had the conversation with the ant that the Quran says he had.
All right, sure. But it is possible for evolution to occur, just like how I'm still waiting for Barack, but you called me a liar.
I told you that Surah 17 talks about this trip that he supposedly made, but that they don't go into detail about how it is. It was corrected that the Hadith says that the way that he did it was by the Barack.
But we're talking about the recital. We're not talking about the Hadith.
I understand that. That's why I made the clarification.
I appreciate it.
Coming in from Dave.
So
They
Were
said,
you wrong about that?
David
It
said,
was talking about how he took the trip, but it didn't explain how he took the trip. So the answer to that question came from the hadith.
this one coming in from David said, for Muhammad, why did you lie? They said, Sad 33 says, quote, return them to me, and said about striking their legs and necks, unquote. And then says in 36, verse 36, quote, so we subjected to him the wind blowing by his command gently wherever he directed, unquote.
Right. Yeah. So how'd I lie? He beat his horses, and then he went and he turned to God, and God gave him the power so that he could move the wind. So wind go there, the wind will go there. But at certain times when he moved his hand, the wind went the opposite way based on the seasons. He had the ability to control the wind, because when I was telling you earlier, something has the ability to move this pen to here without holding it. So obviously he gave some of that power to Solomon, and you're going to see those powers later on. I'm not worried.
And that power is called magic.
No.
What is it? Telekinesis?
This one from
It's not telekinesis.
What is
haven't discovered it yet.
WLZXX. You guys have a good chemistry. They said.
Oh,
No, I
no,
like
no.
him. I actually like him because he hates me. I just hope he takes it.
I don't
easy.
hate you. I see you as somebody who really needs to be repaired.
Oh
I
man,
see
come
you as
on.
somebody-
Why would you say that, brother? I have
Because
so
you're
many people in the
defective.
world.
You have
Look,
no
you
kind of
think
no
I'm
grasp
infected,
on
but-
rationality at all. You just
I'm in more
you just
peace than
say
you,
things
brother.
are true. You've got no way of showing that they are. You've got no background information, no evidence at all. You just say that they're true because you want them to be. That's
No,
dishonest.
it's not. My friend, I'm judging my own mentality. I'm at total peace. There's nothing you could say. You could even, as many people do, talk about Muhammad and Aisha. I'm already at peace because they've reached peace. They helped me reach that peace. I'm at peace, but it seems like you're upset. Not upset. Maybe that's the wrong word, but you seem frustrated.
Wouldn't you be frustrated if you saw somebody that was ill, that was
Man.
suffering dementia, and you know you can help them, but it's just hard to reach them? Wouldn't you feel bad about that?
But that's how I feel about you, because you're going to be very upset when you realize that you can come back online, and then you're going to be like,
Okay.
damn, man, I was
Okay.
saying a lot of bad things
This
that was
one-
hurting other people.
This one.
So-
But you don't want that. It's fine, man. But I can't feel sorry for you at this point because this is what you want. God's giving you what you want. I'll give you the
You're
example.
contradicting your own scripture right now, but there's no
No,
way to
I'm
get
not,
through to
man.
you
I'm
on
not.
anything. I
I'm
can't
not.
reach you on any point. There's no point in
Well,
even
because-
talking to you.
Brother, I have a duty to forgive those that don't want the days of God
This
so
one
that you
coming
can
in.
get what you asked for. That's a verse in the Quran. Do you want me to say in Arabic to prove it?
This one coming in
I'm
from
forgiving you.
SUV X2Z.
You're forgiving me for you being delusional and me trying to help you. So you
No,
forgive me for trying to
I'm-
help you. Great.
I'm forgiving you for you calling me a liar and delusional, and then you're saying
When you
untruth,
say
and you couldn't
things that are
prove
not
it.
true, that's when you assert things that you don't know to be true, but you say that they are true. When you call them facts when they're not facts, when you pretend to know things you don't know, those are all lies.
It's
Straight
facts.
up.
When you break verses in a recital, you're gonna get a little bit of delusion. That's a fact.
This one being coming in from SUV X2Z says, what does Muhammad think about the moon splitting mentioned in the Quran? Although it has been completely debunked in modern day and even NASA denies it. I think you actually addressed that already.
Yeah.
This one
With
coming in
Rashad
from
Khalifa.
XX.
Yeah, the moon was split in half, and a rock came to Earth in 1974. I think brought here by the
Yeah,
lunar
but
lander. And so that is the
Inshaq al-Qamar.
desperate rationalization.
Brother, in Shaq al-Qamar, it doesn't mean it's split. It doesn't mean split in half. But again, let's go to the hadith and see what
So
the
how are
hadith
people
say.
going to notice when you look at the moon, when Muhammad shows them the moon 240,000 miles away?
We're going
and
back
says,
to
look,
hadith.
I just split the moon. And are they going to be able to see that a single tiny rock, an 8-pound rock left the moon from 240,000 miles away? No, that's not how it was interpreted at all.
But at the same time, is it possible for the moon to be split and put back
No.
the exact same location? So what kind of evidence do you want at that point?
The same reason it's not possible for Solomon to have that conversation with an ant. And it's
That's
the
an
reason that
opinion.
Muhammad doesn't have the telekinetic ability to change the wind.
But there is a proven fact that this book helped Muhammad overtake both the Byzantine Empire and the Roman Empire because of the way of thinking, that mentality.
I would
It took him
again, I would
farther than you'd
caution you
ever go.
against using the word proven fact, because they do not mean, unsupported
History
assertions
is not
does
proven
not
fact.
equal unsupported assertions do not equal proven fact. Now,
Wait,
when you
history doesn't
assume-
prove?
When you assume that a military victory was then attributable to a book of magic stories, That's your assumption. That's not a proven fact.
No. The victory is because of the mind, the state of mind that they were in. They were completely submitted that it's going to go through the God's words. So we're in physics of God. As long as I do the right inputs, I'm going to get the right output, my friend.
In the battle as well.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry.
That and the 1,000 angels that apparently were invisible and didn't do anything, but were participating in the battle as well.
Correct. There's angels. They can take you off course. So that makes me easier to overtake you in a battle.
There evidently are no angels. And evidently are no devils.
Of course, because you can't see them, right? Is that it?
I said evidently. There's not just that you can't see them. There's lots of things we can't see that we can prove are still there.
But you get angelic thoughts.
This one coming in from XWLZ. XX says sex slavery is in there. It says, quote, "It is lawful to whom your right hand possesses," unquote. Plus, Islamic heaven is just a brothel. How empty is that kind of afterlife? Clearly made up male fantasy.
It also allows that you can have sex with your female slaves, that they are your property. You can do what you want, and you can have slaves specifically for the purpose of sex, and then you also get sex slaves in heaven as well.
We'll give you plenty of time to respond.
I like how you make up a lot of things.
I like how you make up me making shit up. I'm not making it up.
You are.
It's in there.
Where's Buddha? And show me the word sex slave.
I told you, it's told the story of him making the trip. Didn't explain how he made the trip.
Brother, I know what you're saying, but it still goes against the fact that it's not in the recital. We're talking about the recital in the Quran. I'm not talking about the hadith. The hadith rule lives. I'm talking about the Quran. The hadith that's accurate doesn't say stuff like that.
The hadith
and the hadith
accurate.
that help the nations, people, we don't sit here and talk about hadith that's hurting people. But you know what? There's hadith that's also going against nations. They don't talk about it. So the hadith is one topic and the Quran is another thing. You're talking about hearsay and possible things Muhammad said, and in the word of God. You can't contradict the word of God.
We are talking about what the Quran says, that it says that you can have sex with your female slaves. It never does the moral thing and says that you shouldn't have slaves. No, you can have slaves and you can have sex with your slaves, and they just have to submit to you.
Brother, where's the female slave part in the Quran at all? It's the people you give your oath to. That's what it means, your right hand. Iman. Yaminakum. From the word
you
oaths.
own. And when the Quran says slaves, you can have sex with your slaves.
Where does this word
okay, once again, if you want to discuss the content with
no, I want to see where you're getting these verses
somewhere
from.
else. We're not doing that here.
We must wrap up. We want to say huge thank you to our guests. It has been a true pleasure. They're linked in the description, folks. Highly encourage you. We've got 2 big debates tomorrow, as mentioned. If you haven't heard, it is going to be a big one on whether or not porn is harmful for society. That's tomorrow night, as well as at the bottom right of your screen. Who was Muhammad? David Wood, Acts 17 Apologetics against Muji. That's going to be a juicy one tomorrow morning. So we'll hopefully see you for that one. Hit subscribe. That way you get a reminder. And one last thank you. We really do appreciate you guys. Aron and Muhammad, it's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. I'll be back in a moment, folks, with a post-credit scene. Stick around.
Do you know what a blessing is?
Amazing, my dear friends. We are absolutely thrilled. Oh wait, you can't see me. That's right. Let me open up a Zoom window. You guys, I got to tell you, we really do appreciate our guests. The speakers are the lifeblood of the channel. There is no doubt about it. And so let me just see what I can do here. 2 seconds left, James, and after show. my friends, I am thrilled to have you here and want to say thanks for hanging out with us tonight. It was a lively one to be sure. Want to let you know about some upcoming debates. As mentioned, this big juicy one at the bottom right of your screen, you don't want to miss that. More Muslim debates coming up, as we have that one tomorrow morning. But we also have a lot of juicy, controversial political ones coming up in the next several weeks, including the one that I had just mentioned. You guys, I am pumped for this tomorrow night. You don't want to miss it. It is Kat and Dr. E. Michael Jones, who you can see at the bottom right of your screen. I will be moderating both of those tomorrow. So I hope to see you here, my dear friends. And I've got to tell you, our story is just beginning. If you are new to Modern Day Debate, I have to let you know we have a vision that we are absolutely determined to fulfill, namely providing a neutral platform so that everybody can make their case on a level playing field. No matter what walk of life they are from, we want to say thank you guys for being with us, no matter what walk of life you are from. And we are a neutral channel, so that means we don't have any videos that take a side and say, man, that person was great, or man, that person was terrible. We instead let you, the audience, leave your comments on who you think was most persuasive, what arguments you thought were most or least persuasive, and why. People really do enjoy getting to see other people's thoughts on the arguments and the debates. So we invite you to weigh in on who you think was most persuasive. As I mentioned, we, as a neutral platform, do not do that, as we want to be as fair as possible, including in our videos that are separate from the debates. So we pretty much only host debates if you're new here. But my dear friends, I am excited for the future. We are working hard. We believe sincerely this channel can improve. There's no doubt about that. You guys could probably think of plenty of things that can improve, but we'll be the first ones to admit it. We think that we can do bigger, better, more amazing things in the future, and we're absolutely determined to do it. We're going to dig down, put in the hard work, take ownership for it, and make positive changes, as we are excited, you guys. And don't get me wrong, I love this channel. I love it the way it is. It's already a blast, but we are always working on improving the channel and making it better, and we really believe we can. And that, for us, is something we enjoy, because we've got a purpose, and I'm serious about that. You guys, I appreciate your support. Thanks for your super chat that just came in, XXWLZXX. Thank you for your support. We've got a purpose, and we appreciate you guys being a part of it. And even if you're like, I've never given a super chat, it's like, hey, just by being here, that helps the channel. No joke, it really does, because we want to have an eclectic mix of different people from different walks of life that make up the Modern Day Debate community. So we are glad you were here, as you are you, and there's nobody else like you. You really do help make this a more diverse, more eclectic mix of a community here at Modern Day Debate. But other ways that help is, thanks for hitting that like button. If you haven't yet, and you're like, hey, yeah, I gotta admit, it was a fun Friday night. I enjoyed this debate. Hey, go ahead and crush the like button. Destroy it like it's your worst enemy. We want to say thank you guys so much. We are excited. XXWLZXX says, hey, James, can you host a debate about the topic of parapsychology? I find the topic fascinating. Can you try and get Dean Radin on the platform? I think it would make for an amazing debate. I'm open to it. I don't know who Dean is, and I got to be honest, it's not a topic that we were like, in terms of the topics we're really trying to shoot for. I'm open to it. If you share more details with me at moderndaydebate@gmail.com, we'll consider it. I do appreciate you mentioning that. I got to be honest, in my experience, there are a couple of topics that don't do, I'm giving you guys the insider info here. There are a couple of topics that don't do as well as I would have expected. One is, a lot of people think like, oh, anything taboo will do well. How about a debate on sex? People don't like sex because it's an intellectual topic. They like it because they like doing it. Sex is not a good debate topic. Whenever we have a debate topic on sex, it actually crashes. It does not do very well. And psychology, surprisingly, actually doesn't usually do well. Parapsychology, if it's something like clairvoyance, like whether or not, so for example, like at the beginning of the movie Ghostbusters, if somebody can, I think it's like ESP, if they can detect like what the back of a card is or what it says on the back of a card, like when Bill Murray was going through I think it was an example of parapsychology with the girl in the beginning, and he was telling her that she was a psychic even though she wasn't really. Ghostbusters are some of my favorite movies. They're fun. They're tremendous movies. But let me say, Adrian Metzler, glad to have you here. We hope you are doing all right. Says, I'm all right. Don't nobody worry about me. I appreciate that. I recognize that reference. And Stupid Beta Energy, thanks for being with us. Sephirin, good to see you. Longtime viewer. Eric Cartman, glad you are back. Omega Weapon, happy to have you with us. King 101, another longtime viewer, happy to see you. Hannah Anderson says, our Modern Day Debate Discord is having an after show. Come join in the discussion. All are welcome. And I'll pin that at the top of the chat. Want to encourage you folks, come check it out. Modern Day Debate does have a Discord, and it is linked in the description. Highly encourage you to check it out. And there are debates in there, so if you want to debate things like that, lots of fun. Highly encourage you. It's a fun community there as well. I got to be honest, I got to give you a warning. I'm hardly ever in the Discord because I don't know how to do it because I'm a boomer. But nonetheless, I know I know I'm ruining the fun because I'm embracing the word boomer, but I like it because it sounds powerful. Boomer. Omega Weapon says, hold debaters to answer questions directly and not go off on tangentials. Well, I can only redirect it so much, and that is why I think Modern Day Debate is doing something right. Now, I agree. To an extent, we will try to redirect it, and I don't know how long you've been here, Omega Weapon. I did try to redirect the chat numerous times tonight. At the same time, I don't want to be so hands-on and forceful to where it's overproduced. Because that's the thing. We like it that Modern Day Debate is organic. We let things, to an extent, we don't let it go off the rails too much. But we, at the same time, will let it be authentic. And so it sometimes will roam around to an extent. And that's something that, likewise, if somebody calls someone, a shithead, pardon my French, and if they do, I shouldn't have said that. YouTube's going to nail it. But anyway, if they do, we still let it fly most of the time. And the reason is we want it to be organic here on Modern Day Debate, is we want people to be able to say what they want. We want the speakers to have that freedom. And so, yeah, we'll do it some, but I got to tell you, if you haven't seen the beginning of the debate, I did it like 900 times. But I've got to give you some thank you, folks. We had 3 new members. Thanks for your channel membership support. That means more than you know. For real, we really do appreciate it. And I've got to say to our amazing members, because we have 3 levels. One of them is, it's only $1.99 to join. $1.99, amazing. And you can use the sweet emojis, as well as when we do the members only chat like we did tonight for 5 minutes. That's another way that you can be involved during that time, and you can still ask questions, which is a great time to usually get a question in during the Q&A. And then Dr. Dean, so XXWLZXX says, Dr. Dean Radden is one of the leading researchers in the field. I recently read his new book, Real Magic. I thought it was extremely interesting. That is actually pretty interesting. I'll give you that. I'm going to write his name down. I'm open to it. I've got to check it out, though. So, it's probably not going to be soon, to be honest, because right now things are just so insanely busy that I don't know if I'm going to have the time. If you reach out to him and you hear back, let me know. But it's just that it's really hard for me to keep up with all the requests. We have a ton of requests, including people that are actually requesting to come on. And so, but want to say thank you for your support. In the old chat, Muhammad Mad 53, glad you're with us, as well as a public forum. Happy to have you here. And Marion Grand Bruheim, good to see you again. Baron Von G, glad you are back. Brandon Burrows, is anyone interested in debating D's nuts? I get that. Next, thanks very much, Gross Potate, good to see you again. And Stupid Beta Energy, she's a Zoe Guzzler. We are glad that you're here. Hard X-Core Darkness, thanks for being with us. Seriously, we do appreciate you being here. But yeah, if you haven't hit the like button, we're 5 likes away from 300 likes. I'm dead serious. If you look at the counter, we are 4. Now we are only 4 likes away from 300 likes. Hit that like button. Help support the stream. That really does help. And I got to tell you, join us as we do fulfill this vision, as we pursue it with all of our strength and our endurance and might. We are providing a neutral platform on YouTube so that everybody can make their case on a level playing field as we get different people from different walks of life talking about the big questions of life. My dear friends, we're excited about the future, and the future is bright for Modern Day Debate. I've got to tell you, join us while we are small. We are still a small channel in the big picture, because don't get me wrong, I'm thankful. We just hit 66,000 subscribers yesterday. We just hit 66,100 today. We are growing. There's no doubt about it. Nonetheless, and I am thankful for that growth, you guys have made this channel as awesome as it is. Seriously, we do love the mix of different people from different walks of life. We appreciate your questions for the Q&A. We need questions for the Q&A. You guys honestly make this channel a blast. And this is just the beginning. As I had said, our story is just starting. We have big things in store for Modern Day Debate as we are on a determined march to hit 100,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And after that, who knows? We are absolutely determined, my dear friends. And so we are working on finding new ways that we can get better, taking responsibility for the things that we have done where we're like, you know what, we can do better at that. We've got to take responsibility for it if we're going to improve, and we are going to. So I encourage you, join us. We are the fastest growing neutral platform on debate, on YouTube, no doubt about it. And want to say thank you guys for all your support, though. I love you guys. Thanks, Stardust. Good to see you there in the old live chat. And Omega Weapon, glad you were with us, as well as Stupid Horror Energy. Beta! And Sideshow Nav says 300 or more likes. Keep them coming. We're at 305. We need 5 more to get to 310. Consider hitting that like. It's your good deed for the day. If you want to do another good deed today, hey, now's your chance. Hit that like button and do yet another good deed before your day wraps up. Want to say thanks, though, for your support. Thanks, S-Ben, for being with us. S-Ben M, as well as Rest in Space. Thanks for being with us. Soundwave, glad you were here. D. Ross, glad you came by. And Great Jedi, happy to have you with us. Omega Weapon says Nate Thompson versus Professor Dave, Flat Earth permanently fails. Juicy topic. That could be a lively one, no doubt about it. I want to say thank you guys for all of your support. We're excited about the future. We're excited to have you with us. And so join us as we do fulfill that vision of providing a neutral platform for everybody to make their case on a level playing field as we get different people from different walks of life talking. So thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great night. And we love you guys. I'm excited to see you tomorrow morning, so I've got to get going. Thanks, everybody. I love you. I'll see you soon.